All right, you and I are about to dive into the story of a man who went from a lazy shut-in to a world-conquering tyrant. Guards stand watch while a meat grinder looms in the background, classic villain energy. The Archduke says he came here in good faith for peace. He claims he wants to take the first step toward harmony, but don't let that fool you. The look on his face says otherwise. He's slowly pulling petals off a flower one by one. Is he planning peace, or is he thinking about burning the world down? He sits there looking completely relaxed on his throne, while the noblewoman kneeling before him is shaking with absolute terror. Behind him, the entire capital is engulfed in flames. This guy definitely isn't here to make friends or sign a treaty. The commoners watch in horror, but Lady Isabella is even more stunned. She claims 6 other cities are joining her rebellion. She warns that even an archduke would need years to conquer them by force, but she's a high noble with massive political influence. She promises she can make them all surrender without spilling a single drop of blood. A true politician's gamble, right there. The Archduke seems to agree, and she smiles like she's won him over. But honestly, that's exactly when things go horribly wrong. Now pay attention, because this is the exact moment everything falls apart for her. He asks if she's really betraying her own people. As he stands up, her confidence completely shatters. Isabella is surrounded by monsters, realizing she's walked straight into a trap. She starts to panic as she's grabbed. The Archduke doesn't stop, accusing her of being a leader who doesn't protect anyone. He says she's only trying to save her own skin, typical corrupt noble behavior. Then, he shouts so the entire city can hear. He leans back with so much dramatic flair, I thought his spine might snap. He tells the people their leader is a traitor. He claims she's sacrificing the lives of their elders and children for her own greed. Everyone is paralyzed with fear and confusion. He screams that they can never trust these highborn elites. Their only option is to trust him because he's on the front lines. He frames himself as the hero fighting against a selfish woman who would sell her soul for power. Honestly, this speech is legendary. If I were in that crowd, I'd probably be cheering for him too. This guy is a master of manipulation and political theater. The speech is so epic that people actually start crying. He calls for the crowd to help him purge the world's corruption. He gets inside their heads until they're all chanting his name, Dante. The woman is dragged toward the meat grinder in chains. You can probably guess what happens next. The crowd goes wild as the executioner readies the blade. It's absolute chaos. It looks like a scene straight out of a horror movie, out of the 72 lords who rule this dark world. The one ranked 71st, the weakest of them all, is our main character, Dante, but we need to see how he got here. Let's pause for a second. Before he was a king, he was just a guy with some serious daddy issues. He wasn't always an archduke. Back in our world, he was just a regular guy who lived a pretty miserable existence. He grew up hating his father with a burning passion. While some kids miss their parents, this guy just wanted his dad gone. He constantly wished for the old man's death, and one day, it actually happened. Careful what you wish for, because life delivers. His father was a total criminal. You could tell just by that sleazy mustache and those shifty eyes. He was a complete crook. On top of being a thief, the man was a notorious womanizer. He chased anyone and everyone while hoarding a mountain of cash. The guy loved money more than anything, and while I can relate to that, his son was the one who suffered. He didn't have many friends growing up, but when the old man finally kicked the bucket, he left behind a massive fortune. After packing up the house, Dante wondered if his father knew his time was up. But honestly, who really gives a damn? It's already morning, and the sun is peeking through. Everyone else is heading off to their miserable jobs while he chills out. Our main character is just sitting there with his morning coffee, watching the world go by with a smirk on his face. Now that he's rich, he's going to live the ultimate slacker life. No more rules, no more bosses, just pure unadulterated freedom. The inheritance totals 500 million yen, which is about $3 million. He's set for life in his cozy bed. He thinks that maybe his dad wasn't so bad after all. That's a son for you, celebrating the death once the money hits. With that kind of cash, he could buy a mansion, a carriage, and maybe even a wife. or, just some peace. Since he's a shut-in, he's not interested in any of that. At least, that's what he says while looking smug as hell. He's been eagerly waiting for a special delivery. Is it a virtual girlfriend? No, it's something much more important to him. The guy moves so fast the delivery man doesn't even finish his sentence. He's just a blur of excitement as he grabs it. He leaps onto his bed, dying of happiness. This protagonist might be rich, but he's still a man of the people at heart. Even with $3 million, the only thing he really wants is to build the ultimate dream room for a true gamer. And trust me, we're about to see just how far this obsession with the ultimate slacker life takes him. All right, you and I are about to meet the world's most dedicated slacker, and trust me, his life is about to get very complicated. Arthur, our slacker protagonist, lives by 3 strict commandments. Do not work, do not have friends, and never get married. I understand the part about avoiding labor and marriage, but let me explain his bizarre logic behind the no friends rule. Working is a nightmare, but having friends means you are forced to go out and engage in constant nightly rivalries with everyone. I do not really get that competitive alpha male stuff either, but marriage is the real trap since it means losing your freedom. Promising your whole life to one person seems like a terrible gamble, especially since his father found true love 12 different times. The man was simply the last of the legendary romantics, so Arthur's only goal is to rot away while playing video games. Honestly, that is the dream for any average guy, and as he puts it, that is the definition of paradise and luxury. He finally spends 2 months straight focused entirely on his game, and now he has grown a bit of a messy beard. It is great that he finally finished the quest, but when you see the state of his room, the dude is living in a dump. I have no clue how he managed to pile up that much garbage in only 60 days, but it is a disgusting achievement. Like any true addict, as soon as he beats one game, he is already hunting for the next challenge without wasting any time. But while he is searching for a new title to conquer, a mysterious notification pings from the game that is still open. Arthur finds this strange because he never signed up for any social guilds, but the system has a brand new message for him. The notification is from the game masters, congratulating him on his victory, but things are about to take a very dark turn. Pay attention here, because if you have read enough of these stories, you know an admin message is never just a friendly hello. The developers ask him to answer a few simple survey questions, which already smells like a total scam to a veteran gamer. The first question asks whether he prefers delicate young maidens or the more mature and sophisticated noblewomen of the high court. He is just as baffled by the question as anyone else would be, but if forced to choose, he would go for the mature women. Arthur picks one of the options, though we do not see which, and the next question is even more bizarre than the first. The system asks if he gets excited by inflicting pain or receiving it, and man, I do not know what this game is playing at. A flood of weird personal questions follows until Arthur is totally fed up, but the final one really manages to grab his attention. It asks if he knows the true ending of the game, which is obvious since he just spent months reaching the very end. Then another message asks if he would be able to change that ending, but Arthur thinks this is just some strange digital scam. He tosses the controller aside, assuming they will eventually ask for his gold or try to force him to buy a new sequel. My advice to you is to keep your room clean, or else the local pests will eventually come and take over your life. When it comes to giant cockroaches, even the toughest knights lose their cool, and he jumps back in a state of pure horror. By total coincidence, his hand slams right onto the controller and clicks the notification, triggering a deadly chain of events for our hero. Now watch this, because this is where the ordinary world ends and the nightmare truly begins for our lazy main character. The screen glows with a blinding intensity and he blacks out, only to wake up somewhere that definitely is not his messy room. As he regains his senses, he wonders what happened while staring at his hands, or rather, staring at a pair of strange gloved hands. How he figured out these were not his hands while wearing leather gloves is a mystery, but living alone makes you very observant. The hands are not the only problem here, as his whole face is wrecked because someone clearly did a violent number on him. He feels a sharp pain in his gut and collapses while a mysterious man looms over him, demanding answers in a cold voice. The man wants the location of the hidden treasure, and if Arthur does not talk, they are going to get even more brutal. The thug beating him up calls him the Demon King, and that is exactly when things start going downhill for our confused hero. He cannot even think about running away because his left leg is completely broken, so it is time to start praying for mercy. The man is not giving him any time to think, threatening to use a massive rock to break him into tiny little pieces. Arthur obviously has no idea what they are talking about regarding this hidden treasure, or this whole terrifying Demon King title. He is as lost as a blind man in a dungeon raid, with no clue where he is or why these people hate him. To summarize, he is broken, bleeding, and surrounded by a group of killers who look like they want to rip him apart. It looks like our hero is in for a rough ride, and you and I are going to see if he can actually survive this mess. All he can remember is that he was at home playing games, and suddenly he ended up in this brutal nightmare world. He decides to stop panicking for a moment and focus entirely on survival, which is much easier said than actually done. Running is totally out of the question because his foot is mangled and his body is so battered that he can barely move. Stick with me, you and I are about to watch a weakling try to outsmart his way out of an early grave. Hunting for clues, he asks why they keep calling him the Dread Lord. Honestly, that was probably his biggest mistake so far. One brute grabs his horns and sneers, asking if he has gone mad from the beating. Those horns prove he is Lord Dante. Dante is in total shock as the memories flood back. He is trapped inside a cursed story where heroes hunt down dark lords. It is a brutal game where everyone dies eventually. No happy endings here, just a dark, twisted world on the edge of collapse. For Dante, it is even worse. He is a bottom-tier noble, the weakest of all the dread lords in this cruel kingdom. To make it clear, he is supposed to die in the very first chapter. He is just fodder meant to be slaughtered quickly. After recalling all this, he realizes he is stuck as the most pathetic character imaginable. Talk about drawing the shortest straw possible. Just look at his face, the man knows he is in deep trouble. Dante tries to think, but a heavy fist ruins his focus. That punch snaps him back to reality. If he does not act now, his story is going to end right here on the floor. Pay attention here, the lead knight is talking to his squad, and the odds are looking absolutely impossible for our hero. Poor Dante gets thrashed. He finally escaped his cruel father only to end up on the brink of death in this nightmare. As he fades, a vision of a man at a table appears. As the figure looms closer, he sees his father laughing at him. This nightmare brings back a dark memory from his youth. He was once kidnapped by a man who hated his terrible father. Back then, the boy did not care if he lived or died. Even the kidnapper was spooked by how eerily calm the kid was. Once they reached the hideout, the boy made a reckless bet. The man pointed a pistol and swore it was loaded and ready. Dante just told him to pull the trigger. If he died, he was free from his father. If not, he was still stuck. The kid was clearly unhinged, but luckily for him, the gun was empty. The kidnapper was so terrified that he actually called the guards. That was the day Dante learned that only the strongest survive. He realized mercy is a luxury he can never afford to keep. The author is trying to make him look like a badass, but let us be real, he is still just bleeding on the floor. A bunch of hungry mercenaries are hovering over him, desperate for gold. Their leader demands to know where the royal treasury is hidden. Survival belongs to the strong, and he is determined to prove he is not done yet. He has to change the game now. You and I both saw that coming, right? He is cowering on the ground while these buff dudes prepare for loot. The blonde knight asks again about the gold while grinding his boot into Dante's head. Our hero has died once, so he is fearless. Since he has already crossed the finish line before, he decides to play this however he wants. He has got nothing to lose. The leader loses his patience and gives up on the talk. He orders the brute to finish Dante off and end the mystery. A massive man steps forward, holding a giant iron meat tenderizer. He even asks if they are sure they want to kill him. If he dies, the secret of the gold dies with him. But the blonde knight just shrugs, confident they can find it alone. The brute raises the mallet like a god of thunder. As it swings down, Dante screams for them to wait for just 1 second. The mallet stops in midair. The strength needed to halt that momentum is insane. Dante has to use every trick in the book. The knights are thrilled. They think they are finally getting the location of the treasure. Little do they know what is coming next. Dante stands up, his eyes burning with a cold rage. He is going to survive this nightmare no matter what it takes from him. I have no idea how he is standing on that broken leg, but let us roll with it. He looks them in the eye. He promises to reveal everything. The brute is happy to hear it. Their plan is simple: take the gold and sell him off. Here is the catch: Dante has no idea where the gold is. He is just bluffing to buy some time in this hellhole. He cannot just point at a random wall, or they will kill him. So he starts a desperate act to save his own skin. Kneeling, he claims he is defeated, and the gold is in the archdemon's sanctum. He says it is protected by complex ancient magic. Only he knows the spell to break the seal. Looking at their faces, it is clear they are not entirely buying this story yet. For a heartbeat, it looks like his head is going to be chopped off. A sword flashes dangerously close to his broken neck. It was just a scare tactic from the leader. He warns Dante that if he is lying, he will die a slow death. With a stone-cold expression, Dante says he understands. I honestly have no idea what his real plan is for when they arrive. He is leading them to his own boss room, but he is the boss. This is a gamble that could backfire at any moment. The mercenaries are already celebrating their new wealth. Meanwhile, Dante is just relieved he survived this first encounter with the group. The first wall has been climbed, but the real battle is just starting. They will keep him alive for now, but not forever. So what do you and I think? Can he really talk his way out of this? Stick around for the next part. All right, you and I are about to watch one brilliant noble play a deadly game of survival. With his leg mangled, the mercenary leader knows Dante is just stalling and orders him to move immediately. Keep pace or die. This brute is clearly running the show, and Dante knows his time is running out. He needs a plan to kill them before they slit his throat. Strangely, a quick glance shows his foot looks fine. Maybe it is high-speed regeneration or just a lucky break, but our hero still has a massive problem. It is 10 armored thugs against one fragile noble. He cannot take them all at once, so he scans for help. Since this is the Demon Keep, he hopes some stray monsters are lurking nearby to cause a distraction. The blonde mercenary snaps at him again. He does not care about Dante, he just wants the treasure before the kill. Now pay attention, because there is a weird contradiction here that could be Dante's only ticket out. One guy wants him alive, this guy wants him dead. Dante realizes these mercenaries might not even be on the same page. Checking the cave, he sees only old bones. Nothing has died here recently, meaning no monsters are coming to save him. He is totally on his own now. He wonders how much time is left before they reach the inner sanctum. He wishes this were just a video game. Then, suddenly, something appears ahead that changes the entire board. The Eyes of Wisdom, a legendary skill from his favorite game, suddenly activates right before his eyes. He sees the entire dungeon map, every trap, and every enemy location. Dante finally lets out a hopeful smile. He can actually use game abilities here. The Eyes of Wisdom is a broken skill that reveals everything. It tracks positions, items, and traps. Usually, you would not unlock this until the end of the quest. You might wonder how he has this now. Well, during the tutorial, all overpowered rank S skills were unlocked. Being trapped as Lord Dante was a nightmare, but now, this power makes it all worth it. There is no garrison support here, but a system notification pops up allowing him to hire mercenary monsters. A slime costs 4 gold, a fairy is 8, a goblin is 12, and a massive stone golem is 20. 10 golems would end this, but his budget is only 100 gold pieces. This is going to be tight. Okay, I know what you are thinking. 100 gold is nothing, but let's see how he uses it. He crafts a desperate plan with only a 60% chance of success. It is a total gamble on his life. Dante fully embraces his new persona, staring at the thugs with the chilling gaze of a true demon lord. To make this work, he needs their trust. But first, he has to test one more high-level ability. He activates the Apostle of Aphrodite skill, allowing him to see the hidden stats and attributes of his enemies. While he analyzes them, the blonde mercenary draws his sword, demanding speed. Dante keeps up his terrified act. He plays the coward perfectly, but the real counterattack is already in motion behind his submissive facade. This apostle skill is top tier, revealing the secret status screens of everyone around him without them knowing. With all the intel gathered, he just needs to pick the right path and win over their confidence. This blonde guy has ordered him to hurry up 15 times now. Talk about having zero patience. The status screen reveals the leader's name is Leaf. He is just a low-rank mercenary with poor stats. Leaf only has rank C wisdom. Even better, this skill lets Dante peek into his target's recent thoughts. To earn Leaf's trust, Dante must take a massive risk. He is no longer just trying to survive. He is now fully determined to eliminate these invaders. As they trek deeper, Dante spots some old bones. Bones are scattered everywhere. It is time. Dante suddenly shouts for the entire group to stop immediately. Leaf stares in shock, demanding to know what is wrong. Dante apologizes for the sudden interruption. He claims there are deadly traps ahead. Leaf is visibly nervous, unsure if he should believe this noble. Dante warns that a few more steps will trigger a volley of invisible arrows, that no one will survive. His acting is absolutely legendary. He deserves every award for this performance. He offers to lead the way. He will personally deactivate the traps. Leaf is skeptical, but one of his scouts checks their own map. The mercenary confirms the path narrows ahead and becomes pitch black. Dante timed this move perfectly. It was a masterstroke. Anywhere else, it would have failed, as Dante steps forward into the darkness. Leaf threatens to kill him if he runs, but you and I know who is really in control now. You and I are about to watch a master manipulator at work. He claims his leg is shattered, even though it looks fine. He claims this is his way of showing respect, since they are different from the knights who usually just try to kill him. Yeah, right. These guys are different, all right. They prefer to rob you blind before they finally end your life. Dante keeps moving and tells them if they're suspicious, just follow him, but he can't promise they will stay safe. It is a classic move, leaving the choice to them. Captain Alaric doesn't trust him one bit, but orders the team to keep following anyway. But these soldiers aren't stupid. They're hesitating, terrified of catching a stray arrow to the face if they rush in. They have every reason to be cautious. Back at the entrance, massive iron pillars nearly crush them into a pulp. Alaric mocks them for being cowards, and honestly, they are. Our protagonist is absolutely loving this power play right now. He flashes that sly smile as he slips away. He's found enough distance to set the stage for his masterpiece. He gathered a few stray arrows earlier for no reason, but now they're going to be the perfect props. Watch this, he's about to do exactly what you're thinking. He picks up an arrow and stabs his own leg. A gut-wrenching scream echoes from deeper within the cavern. Trust me, the only part of this act that was actually real was the sheer agony of that sound. The mercenaries are paralyzed. If they doubted the traps before, they sure don't now. Dante tells them to stay back. Arrows are still flying, apparently, but Alaric is fed up. He threatens to kill anyone who doesn't push forward immediately. The men are shaking, but it is either the traps or Alaric's blade. They have no choice but to advance. Alaric bellows for Dante's location as they move deeper, until one soldier spots a fresh trail of blood ahead. Following the trail, they find Dante collapsed on the stone floor with an arrow buried in his leg. He struggles to his feet, pretending he just passed out. He gasps that the pain knocked him out. Alaric checks the area for more traps, but Dante says they're all clear. The squad breathes a massive sigh of relief, thanking their lucky stars they aren't the ones full of holes right now. Alaric asks why he'd risk his life to help them. Wouldn't it have been smarter for him to just stay quiet? Dante keeps the mask on, claiming it's because they're different from the previous hunters who tried to murder him the moment they saw his face. Okay, let's pause. If they actually believe this load of garbage, I'm going to lose it. You and I wouldn't. Dante claims he was hit while disarming a trigger. He grits his teeth and begins to pull the arrow out. Now, this is actually pretty reckless. Everyone knows you should never just rip an arrow out like that. It's common sense. Instead, he snaps the shaft and keeps moving. To my surprise, Alaric and the entire squad actually swallow the story. Dante checks his system screens. Their trust level is spiking. They are actually starting to rely on him for survival. He's got them right where he wants them, but he's not finished yet. The real performance is only just beginning. A charisma notification pops up. It looks like his stats grow whenever he hits certain milestones in his twisted little games. The system won't let him become too overpowered just yet, so let's just call him the Demon King of acting instead. Alaric believes he can exploit the boy if he plays this right, but a deep wound like that is just going to slow the squad down. He orders one of his men to give Dante a shoulder. The protagonist acts shocked by this sudden show of kindness. He offers his thanks, but Alaric brushes it off as simple gratitude. After all, Dante supposedly saved their lives first. He's playing the part perfectly, but the boss isn't that easy to fool. He needs to do more to truly control them. That was just the opening scene. Act 2 is about to start as they finally reach the Dread King's fortress. A massive door looms ahead, decorated with a stone goat head. It's a fitting entrance for a high-ranking demon. Alaric is impressed by the craftsmanship. He throws the doors open to find the treasure, then turns back to Dante. And there he is, sobbing his eyes out. This is a performance worthy of a grand stage. How does he fake tears? Everyone is stunned. They have no idea why he's breaking down. The man carrying him asks what's wrong with him. He whimpers that the sight reminds him of his lost companions. No, scratch that, it reminds him of his actual family. Even Alaric is taken aback. He didn't think a creature like a demon lord could even have a family. Dante continues the story, describing how this ruined fortress was once a magnificent palace where all kinds of monsters lived together in peace until the day they were attacked. That peace ended the day they were invaded. The demon lord tried to flee, but human archers were already waiting. When everything seemed lost, a member of his family stepped in to protect him. A massive giant asked if he was okay and told him to run for it. Dante begged the giant to escape too, but the beast just took arrow after arrow to buy the boy some time. The giant died so he could live. And trust me, you and I just witnessed the most brilliant lie ever told. Stick with me, because we are watching the greatest acting performance in the history of the realm. He is a total professional. The man is the ultimate liar, and people are actually starting to feel bad for him. It is almost sad how gullible they are. They expected a dark lord to be a heartless monster who could not feel a thing, certainly not someone who would ever cry. Yet here he is, sobbing over his fallen friends. The trust level starts skyrocketing, and even Sir Alistair is second-guessing everything. Lady Anya told him the Dark Lord was pure evil, but the man standing before him does not seem like a monster at all. Alistair decides to let it go. As long as the guy is useful, he does not care if the stories were all wrong. Dante looks at them with teary eyes and thanks them for bringing him back home to the safety of his family castle. He claims they are nothing like the villains who attacked his house, and maybe his ancestors will finally find peace because of them. He tells them that everything in the keep and even his own life belongs to them now. He is playing them like fiddles. They keep walking through the fortress until they finally reach the Grand Master's suite. It is surprisingly fancy for such a weak lord. Alistair expected a shack, but Dante is ready to hand over the keys to the kingdom just like he promised they would. The knight is shaking with greed, wondering where the gold is hidden, but Dante warns him it is sealed away by ancient magic. He explains that he needs to break the spell first and asks everyone to give him some space to work his power. Now pay attention. Since they trust him completely, they back off without a single doubt in their minds as the plan unfolds. Our protagonist knows he is just one step away from total victory. It is time for the final touches to seal their fate. Is he going to summon a horde of monsters? Honestly, there was never any treasure in the keep to begin with, obviously. The only thing left was 100 pounds of silver, but in this realm, that is more than enough to trick a greedy fool. 1 pound equals 15 silver crowns, and because items just drop in this world, he is going to dump over 1,000 coins. But first, he cannot pass up the chance for a dramatic show. He begins his chant with all the grace of royalty. I am the 71st Lord Dante, ruler of this domain. To these brave knights I grant my great, my treasure. He finishes the performance with a grand gesture, and everyone holds their breath waiting for the miracle to happen right before them. Suddenly, a mountain of silver crowns starts raining from the ceiling, and the group thinks they have died and gone to heaven. It is literally raining riches, and they have finally hit the jackpot. Everyone scrambles to grab as many coins as they possibly can. Alistair lets out a laugh so cursed and hideous that you would think he is the villain. Honestly, he will never find love. A notification pops up showing that Alistair Trust has reached 50%. He finally believes every word the protagonist says to him. He orders the men to split the loot evenly, but he has already decided that keeping Dante alive is far more profitable now. The man is still a complete jerk, but at least he has bought into the lie hook, line, and sinker for now. Dante asks to speak up, and the greedy knight immediately asks if there is more gold coming, but this time Dante is serious. He drops some terrifying news. His detection wards just felt 30 heavily armed mercenaries entering the fortress right this second. The vibe is instantly dead since they are outnumbered 3-1. You and I both know they are doomed in a fight. Panic sets in immediately as they realize they might lose all their new gold before they even get to spend it. Alistair begs to know if there is a secret exit, but Dante tells him the only way out is through the front gates. In this world, mercenaries are cold-blooded killers who will not hesitate to slaughter everyone just to take that silver for themselves. Dante suggests that if they cannot hide, they will have to stand and fight, which leaves Alistair totally confused and terrified. The Dark Lord asks if the knight has a map and lies about his powers being too weak to track the enemies. There are 3 paths to the keep, and if he acts as bait, the enemies will follow his magical trail instead. This would allow the rest of the group to sneak out the back, while the mercenaries are busy hunting him down alone. Alistair actually thinks the guy is being noble for a second, but then he suspects Dante is just trying to escape alone. Dante plays the victim, saying he would never betray them, and whispers a secret proposal directly into the greedy knight ear. Alistair gets incredibly excited. Could it be more hidden treasure? He tells Dante to keep the plan quiet from the others. He orders his allies to get ready, but this was exactly what our protagonist wanted from the very start of this scheme. He knew Alistair would not trust him easily, so he built this entire scenario just to split them up and conquer them. A little later, the group divides in 2, with 5 men following the Lord. They even think their leader is incredibly brave. So what do you and I make of this? The group splits, thinking their leader is brave while Dante trap closes. You and I just witnessed a masterclass in manipulation from a man who turned a hopeless situation into his own playground. All right, stay with me. Lord Alaric orders them to loot every coin immediately and says they must split into 2. The mercenary units are baffled because this plan is suicide. Dividing their numbers makes 0 sense if they want to survive. There is no way they can defeat 30 elite knights if they split up, but that is exactly what he wants. Alaric tells everyone to shut it and listen closely. The vault map shows 3 paths, and the invaders are likely being very cautious. With 30 soldiers, they are basically a small army, so they will stick to one main road for safety. Facing them head-on is impossible, so with a wicked smirk, he tells them they should gamble on their survival. His men are terrified, but he claims there is a 100% chance that at least one group will make it. Alaric says his squad will take the gold, making the others think he is just trying to hoard all the wealth. He definitely is, but the second group gets the Dark Lord. If they escape, they can hand him to the crown for a reward. Compared to the gold, the other side has a much harder path, but the prestige for a bounty is legendary. Capturing a Dark Lord could turn them into high-ranking knights. Even Alaric's own inner circle is hesitant about this dangerous gamble. Their captain screams, asking if they are men or cowards. He knows the hook is set. Do they really want to die like dogs? He asks if they are truly pathetic enough to leave their families behind and rot in these ruins forever. The captain claims he wants everyone to survive if possible. I was wrong, the best actor here is not our hero. It is Lord Alaric. He convinced the entire guild to follow his scheme. Back in the shadows, Alaric looks absolutely thrilled. He has totally fooled the captain into thinking Dante was going to flee. The protagonist suggests sending one guard along to watch him. This way, the captain can ensure he does not escape. Alaric needs a reason to keep the treasure, giving him the upper hand. If his story is true, and his men are sacrificed alongside Dante, then all that gold belongs solely to him. Even if Dante is lying, he cannot run away, so it seems like a win. The greedy Alaric agrees to the arrangement instantly. As long as he profits, he does not care. For our protagonist, Alaric just handed him total victory on a silver platter. Now watch this, their forces were just split in half. Dante begins his plan to systematically execute every last mercenary. A massive tremor shakes the cavern. The men think the royal invaders must be getting closer to their position. Suddenly, the floor glows. A magic circle erupts, creating a gale so powerful it blows out every single torch they carry. One soldier asks what is happening, still trusting the Dark Lord. Trusting that snake was the last mistake he will ever make. Dante covers the man's mouth, warning him to stay silent if he does not want to experience true agony. He slowly draws his blade, telling them he is in their debt before ending the first man. The others are too distracted. They are staring at the magic circle, unaware their friend was just gutted. Even if they knew, they have bigger problems now. A massive stone golem emerges from the light. This towering beast leaves the entire squad paralyzed with pure terror. It smashes the ceiling, causing a cave in that crushes several men instantly. Those who survive the rocks are grabbed by the monster. One man tries to save his comrade, but the stones are so hard his sword shatters against the golem with one punch. The construct crushes them both. Only a single knight with a ponytail remains. Honestly, it is a miracle he has not fainted. The Dark Lord appears behind him. You almost feel bad for the guy when he tells the Dark Lord to run. Dante drives his sword straight through the man's heart. Before dying, the knight asks why he would do something so cruel. Cursed is the man who trusts another, but doubly cursed is the one who trusts a demon. Dante has a clear answer. He did it because he is the Dark Lord. Maybe our hero is getting a little too comfortable in this villainous role lately. He kills without a shred of remorse now. Meanwhile, Alaric's group hears the distant rumbling of the earth. He assumes the battle against the invaders has started, finally believing the lie that Dante told them earlier. Alaric is a complete sociopath. The only thing he feels is joy that some of his competitors are likely dead right now. You saw that too, right? His joy vanishes instantly when Dante suddenly appears standing directly in front of him. Alaric is in total shock, wondering why he is here. Dante just stands there, cold, calculating, and staring him down. Alaric realizes there were no intruders, but he still asks where the rest of his mercenary company went. He is desperately clinging to hope. Dante draws his blood-stained sword and admits that he slaughtered every single one of them. His performance is so chilling it feels like he did it alone. Alaric starts to boil with rage at the revelation. He thinks this is some sick joke, but the only joke here is how easily they were all manipulated and betrayed. Trust me, you and I are going to love this part. Dante calls them idiots and laughs at their faces. Diving right in, you and I are about to see what happens when the villain reveals he has been playing everyone for fools. Dante does not stop adding fuel to the fire, mocking them for being as brainless as a pack of monkeys. I thought he was being a bit harsh on the monkeys. Did they really think a demon lord would help humans? Arthur is consumed by rage as everyone lunges at Dante with bloodlust, but this was all part of the trap. A stone golem hiding in the shadows appears at the last second, smashing them and taking down two with one strike. The golem keeps pounding on everyone. It is so strong that every single attack is lethal for these poor adventurers. Garrick swings his massive meat tenderizer hammer and manages to crush the giant stone golem with one single, devastating blow. He looks over at Arthur and says he actually did it, but that was his biggest mistake as Dante finishes him. Dante actually thanks them while the golem reassembles behind him. Arthur is standing there completely and utterly confused right now. Dante explains that it is simple to kill a golem, you just have to destroy the glowing core in its chest. Now watch this part carefully. They were so blinded by Dante's insults that they did not even notice the obvious mistake. Now the power dynamic has completely changed. The Demon Lord is finally the one calling all the shots. Arthur says he is entirely different now. The man standing in front of him is the true, terrifying Demon Lord. But even in this nightmare, he is still planning to survive. As a veteran, he knows how to escape tight spots. As I said, the rules have reversed. Now Arthur is the one putting on a really shoddy acting performance. He even calls the Demon Lord Sir, dropping his sword and asking Dante to kill him quickly and without pain. Dante slowly approaches with his sword in hand. It seems like the plan to trick him is actually working. Once he gets close enough, Arthur will use the hidden dagger on his back to finish the protagonist off. He can do it since his stats are higher. As Dante gets closer, he glances at his monster price list. His money is enough to buy a slime. Meanwhile, Arthur gets more excited with every single step Dante takes. But Dante suddenly stops further away than planned. Arthur is puzzled, wondering exactly why he stopped right there. Using his ability, Dante can see through him. He literally reads every single thought Arthur is having right now. Let's pause here. Dante really knows how to break someone's soul. He has truly become a demon lord. He says it is really over. Checkmate. Arthur is furious that someone he thought was so weak dared mess with him. He lunges at Dante, claiming he is the only victor here. His attack aims straight for the protagonist's neck. But before he can land the blow, he falls flat. A tiny slime is stuck to his foot, pinning him. The guy was so mad he did not even notice the slime. Seeing Dante get closer, he tries to attack again. But his plans are foiled once more as the golem grabs and crushes his arm. I am starting to feel sorry. To make things worse, Dante keeps humiliating him, asking how it feels to be crushed by someone so weak. He pulls out his bloodied sword while Arthur wonders where he went wrong. Was it when he did not kill him? Or when he got the map from that woman? The truth is, his mistake was challenging him from the start. He realizes he should never have gone against him. Even if he seems weak, he is still a demon lord. Honestly, that was an absolute masterclass in revenge. Trust me, the story only gets wilder from here. Right after that, he seems to be in a white mist. He sees his father's face telling him to prepare. Dante cannot stand seeing this man's face anymore. He says being in hell was bad enough without this. His father keeps talking, saying his life will be worse alone. Dante tells him to shut up and shakes the mist. He makes his father disappear, then hears someone calling his name. He was asleep and finally opens his eyes. He finds himself looking at a beautiful pink-haired woman. Life is good when you are a demon lord. I wish I could wake up to a sight like that every single morning. It is truly incredible. But our protagonist is completely confused, which makes total sense given that a random woman just appeared inside his home. I would not want her waking me up either. She immediately shows him a contract for a huge debt. He borrowed 100 gold coins 2 months ago. With interest, it is already up to 1,996. 100 gold coins turning into nearly 2,000 in just 2 months. Insane. Dante wonders who this mysterious woman even is. This all started 3 weeks ago when he first entered this body. He had managed to kill a group of adventurers and was so exhausted he just collapsed right on the ground. All right, you and I are jumping right into the moment. Our main character officially clears the tutorial. His diplomacy, leadership, and charm stats have all leveled up, earning him a legendary S-rank skill reward. But since the trial is over, his old skills are locked away. He gets one choice, and it's back to level 1. The real game is just starting, and from the looks of it, our hero won't be returning to his world anytime soon. He is stuck living as Lord Dante, the demon sovereign. For his skill, he chooses the incredibly powerful apostle of Aphrodite. In a world of lies and court politics, knowing exactly what your enemies are thinking is the ultimate weapon. Overcome by exhaustion, he stares at the destruction he left behind before collapsing right onto the golem's massive hand. He falls fast asleep right then and there. When he finally wakes up the next day, he's in an actual bed. The room is a total mess. This must be Dante's chambers. The golem must have carried him here after he collapsed. He prayed this was all just a nightmare, and he'd wake up back in his own body, but no luck. He is still Dante, stuck trying to save this world as its weakest lord. Now pay attention, because here comes the disaster. A girl with an ice-cold stare suddenly appears, demanding payment for a massive debt he didn't even know he had. Her name is 𝑨𝒓𝒎𝒚, but let's just call her Blue. Dante tries his hardest to convince her he's innocent. He swears he didn't take the gold, but she insists that 2 months ago, he was the one asking for it. She even has a signed contract from the Merchant Guild as proof. Our hero realizes his excuses aren't going to work. They've been at it all week, and he hasn't had a moment of peace. First bandits, and now a lone shark. Being a demon lord is exhausting. The worst part? This contract has a brutal 40% monthly interest rate. How did the previous Dante even sign this trash? Honestly, he thinks the lenders are the real fools for trusting him. Dante is that one friend you know will never pay you back. Before things get worse, he asks her a few questions. Despite her frosty attitude, she agrees to talk. His first question is simple: what happens if he doesn't pay up? As you'd expect, failing to pay usually means you end up as a memory. You and I saw that coming, right? But these collectors are surprisingly nice. They won't kill him, they'll just seize every single piece of his property. Since that crumbling castle is all he owns, they'll force him into manual labor. Let's hope he keeps his other treasures. His final question is about the date. Blue is confused at first, but then the Lord releases his demonic aura. The pressure is so intense that even the icy girl gets terrified. He demands to know the exact day and year. She kneels in apology and reveals it is April 17th, year 505. He is already 6 days late. With the interest mounting, he's heading for total bankruptcy, but our hero doesn't care. Instead, he proposes a new deal. He wants to borrow £10,000. Seriously, if you're going bankrupt anyway, you might as well go big. Why not just take all the gold and crash the entire economy? By April 20th, we're at the 𝑣𝒎𝒐𝒏 company headquarters. A goblin clerk is racing through the halls with urgent documents. This is Tal, the legendary greedy goblin of the firm. He's rushing to sign papers for Prince Payman before the 8 p.m. deadline. This guy is doing 100 things. Multitasking while running like his life depends on it. At the meeting table, we see several high-level characters waiting. Their host reminds everyone that time is money, and this goblin has already wasted far too much of their gold. An elder with symbols etched on his brow declares the meeting open. The 𝑣𝒎𝒐 company is a true powerhouse. Guarded by the 5th and 9th ranked demon lords, it's the most prestigious and powerful firm in the entire underworld. It's run by 𝑨𝒓𝒎𝒚, one of the 3 legendary ancient vampires. This place is packed with high-ranking monsters. Leading them all is the son of Ragnar himself. He orders Blue to explain why this urgent meeting was called. The surrounding monsters are disgusted that a human succubus hybrid is allowed to speak in such a sacred hall. To these demons, hybrids are an inferior race. They see mixed blood as nothing more than a filthy curse. But one command to be quiet instantly silences the room. Not a single sound is made as Blue begins explaining. The topic is the 71st Demon Lord, Dante, taking another loan. The members think this is some kind of joke. But 𝑨𝒓𝒎𝒚 signals her to continue. The amount requested was £10,000, and if you thought that was small, £10,000 is enough gold to buy a small kingdom. The goblin clerk is shocked and asks if it's true. Even Blue couldn't believe her ears at first, but our main character is dead serious about getting that massive loan. She asks why he wants more debt, So what do you and I think? Is he a genius or just crazy? All right, you and I are about to watch the gutsiest gamble ever, borrowing massive gold just to pay off an old debt. Seraphina doesn't get it. Borrowing to pay a loan just sinks him deeper. He'll need even more gold for the next one. The cycle is endless. Lord Alaric asks why she even lent it to him, knowing he's such a notorious risk. She tries to dodge the question, claiming his reputation isn't that bad, but he sees right through her little act. Alaric knows her game. She expected him to fail so she could seize everything he owns in the end. Her real plan? Bankrupt the Lord and turn him into a servant for the syndicate. Cold-blooded, right? But our main character is always steps ahead. Seraphina tries to keep a straight face while denying everything. He presses her hard. Was she sent by the guild specifically to spy on him? She insists this was her own choice. Alaric just chuckles. He loves a good liar. But let's get back to the core of this shady deal. If she lends this fortune, he's basically bound to the guild forever. 10,000 crowns for his soul. It's a bargain for her. Imagine the prestige of turning a legendary lord into a corporate lapdog. Alaric leans in close, lifting her chin and looks deep into her eyes. He's testing her resolve now. The man definitely knows how to handle a lady, but she's not falling for the charm just yet. She pulls back but agrees to the deal. Even the goblin guards think this whole thing is a trap. 10,000 crowns? He can't even pay back 100. Marquis Valerius finds the whole situation bizarre. Now pay attention here. Alaric's strategy is simple. Tell everyone he's gone completely mad just to mask his true goal. Everyone accepts madness. He claims a plague is coming, and only he can create the miraculous cure. He says he's doing it for a loved one. The crowd is baffled. Who could this mystery person be? Seraphina plays along, claiming she is his secret lover. The other demons are absolutely stunned by this sudden news. They can't believe a commoner seduced the Lord. She doubles down, insisting their romance is the real deal. The High-Bloods call her trash. How dare a low-ranked girl claim the heart of an archduke? Even a fallen lord commands respect, but she claims she's just using him to serve the syndicate. Marquis Valerius bursts out laughing. He's impressed. This girl is more ruthless than he ever imagined. She supposedly seduced a lord and bound him to the guild. A perfect sacrifice for the company's gain. You and I both see it, it's pure cinema. They think she's the one pulling the strings right now. The vampire lord cackles. Alaric has them exactly where he wants them, and they have no clue. He normally hates incompetence, but he'll make an exception. He tells Seraphina to finalize the massive loan. Return to Ravenspire and give him the 10,000 crowns. Phase 1 of the plan is complete. The gold is secured. A few days later, on May 3rd, Seraphina meets with the local merchants. She orders them to gather every herb on the continent. The traders are shocked by the massive scale. 8,000 gold just for common weeds. They can't fathom why anyone would spend so much on grass. She tells them to shut up and work. These are direct orders from the Lord. Time is wasting. As she walks through the city, her beauty turns every head. But the rumors following her are much darker than her looks. Word of their romance has spread everywhere. People think the Lord has lost his mind and his fortune. By July 20th, she returns to Alaric. Every herb in the land has been collected and stored. Massive warehouses are overflowing. Even Seraphina is starting to doubt why she's following these insane orders. She finally asks what's going on. He's betting everything on an epidemic that hasn't even arrived yet. He blew 80% of their gold on useless plants. To her, he looks like a total madman. Alaric stays cool. He tells her she'll understand soon enough. But first, he offers a victory toast. She hesitates, but he plays on her emotions, saying this was all for her. She takes the cup. The guy is acting like a complete psycho. There's no way that drink isn't spiked with something. They toast to the future. She drinks, and honestly, this might be the biggest mistake of her life. She gags, asking what trash he gave her. Alaric just laughs like a villain in the shadows. It's a brew made from his expensive herbs. He asks if she likes the taste of his investment. So what do you and I think? Is he a total mastermind or just insane? We're about to find out. All right, you and I are about to dive into the most calculating mastermind in this entire fantasy kingdom. Lord Alistair tells Seraphina she must not return to the castle, but watch him from a new secret location. He remains mysterious, claiming she will understand once she sees it. He tells her to relax and explore instead. 4 days later at the Traveler's Hot Springs in Bathwood, Seraphina is getting ready to take a long bath. She cannot understand the Overlord's mind and does not believe she will find anything useful in a place like this. She might be wrong, though. She pulls out the paper he gave her listing a series of strange symptoms. He noted joint pain, fever, and black bruises. She thinks it is impossible to have predicted such a disease. But she still feels uneasy. Suddenly, a scream rings out as a child faints onto the cold ground nearby. The girl collapsed out of nowhere, crying that her body hurts. Seraphina checks and finds her burning with fever. She orders the child taken to the clinic immediately. She is shocked when a black mark appears on her neck. All the symptoms the Lord described are showing up. More people start passing out in the streets around her. She realizes he was right. That is what you get for doubting him. If she had not drunk the tea, she would be dead too. At the clinic, some patients are dying fast. 30 patients have already arrived in an hour. Seraphina is in shock, sitting on a bench, unable to believe he managed to predict this terrifying and deadly disease. The doctor asks if she is all right, since everyone at the bathhouse died except her. He suggests leaving quickly. She remembers the tea. Even though it seems impossible, she must admit that Lord Alistair was right all along. A few days pass, and it is July 16th. Pip is carrying a scroll through the royal castle corridors. In this story, nobody stays idle. Even little Pip is put to work as she enters the meeting room. Master 𝑫𝒆𝒎𝒏 is meeting with the Queen and is upset at the interruption, but the Queen seems quite understanding. She says if the meeting was interrupted, it must be urgent. This Queen is none other than Duchess Alara. She is the Duchess of Beauty. Now pay attention here, because 𝑫𝒆𝒏 is a completely two-faced royal advisor. With the Queen, he is submissive, but with poor Pip, he almost kills her with his loud, angry shouting. I guess that is fair. You have to be submissive to a queen. Anyway, Pip brings an urgent message. 𝑫𝒆𝒏 starts reading the scroll, but is horrified by the contents. It mentions an epidemic spreading through the kingdom. It started in the bathhouses and is moving fast. It will reach the neighboring frontier realms within mere days. The mortality rate is 80%. The Queen sees 𝑫𝒆𝒏's expression and asks what is wrong as he reads. There is information that Lord Alistair created a miraculous remedy that can cure this terrifying and deadly new disease. His subordinate, Seraphina, has already bought up every herb on the continent needed to produce this life-saving medicine. I did not even know Alistair had subordinates. The Queen asks to read the letter for herself right now. Her reaction is not what you would expect. She is not mad at Alistair for his clever scheme. She finds the situation interesting. Now, you and I are going to watch this play out from the castle. Lord Alistair is staring at the sky despite being in a cave. He watches as Seraphina finally returns home. He notices a storm approaching. Alistair comments that she returned faster than he expected from her trip to Bathwood. He asks if she managed to relax and spread her wings. The worst part is him acting totally clueless. He asks why she is so pale. This guy took her to the edge of death and acts innocent. She questions if he knew from the start. Of course he did. He bought the herbs and symptoms. Was it a wild guess? The guy turns into a full-blown villain when he speaks to her now. Lightning strikes, illuminating the windows and casting a dark shadow. Look at his face in this light here. Tell me this guy is not pure evil. Even Seraphina, a half-demon, is terrified of our cold protagonist. He really knew this would happen from the start. In the game Kingdom Siege, the story starts in 1515. That is 10 years in the future, when the plague has already turned the entire world into darkness. According to the game, the plague started in a hot springs town. It took a year for the cure. Our protagonist was thrown into the world during the epidemic. He used his knowledge to survive the coming storm. Because of the contract, he tracked the timeline accurately. He asks what the merchant company thinks of this. Trust me, you will want to see what comes next. Let's dive in. Lord Dante confronts Lady Beatrice, asking why she abandoned her post at the Merchant Guild. Lord Dante has completely framed Beatrice. She just wanted a promotion to earn a much better living. He studies her face, trying to read her mind, not that he needs to guess with his powerful psychic gifts. He tells her that returning to the Merchant Guild is suicide. Predicting a plague is simply impossible. The council will think this was a planned attack, but who would actually do such a thing? The only answer is Beatrice, who supposedly seduced the demon lord and kept him as a pet at the plague's epicenter. In short, Dante made her the perfect scapegoat. That is why she fled to him. Since she was a child, people spat on her for her mixed blood. She worked so hard to rise. Now everything she built is crumbling because of a man she barely even knows. This Dante is a stranger to her. He does not act like the fool she once knew. Now watch closely. Lord Dante gives her the only choice left: kneel or lose every single thing. He promises her power, not physical strength since he is no fighter, but true authority. She will control every single trade of the remedy. As the blight spreads, the world will burn. It will kill the young, the old, the rich, and the poor. No kingdom or race is safe. By controlling the remedy, she decides who lives. The world is finally in her hands. Those who mocked her heritage will now grovel at her feet for a single drop. Beatrice is torn, but what other option does she have? Her old life is gone. His dark charisma actually reaches her heart. She drops to her knees in total submission. She vows her life to Lord Dante, sealing the pact with a soft kiss on his hand. He promises her a front row seat to the coming chaos. A week later, she is his maid. She serves him breakfast every morning, fully committed to her new role as the demon lord's shadow. Time flies, and she finds herself knocking on his door, but there is no answer from within. She enters to find him doing the only things he does lately: reading ancient tomes and sleeping. She cannot fathom his true goals, but as his servant, Beatrice must follow every single command. You saw that too, right? Without his scary mask, the demon lord actually looks kind of cute. She remembers their first meeting 6 months ago. He had rudely cut her off mid-sentence. Back then, he was just a greedy miser who only cared about gold and loans. To spite him, she spread rumors of hidden treasure in his castle to lure in bandits. And the main thief she sent was Sila's, but the man before her now is godlike. He holds the lives of millions in his palm. He is a completely different person now. She wonders how he can sleep so soundly while the world outside is dying. He simply does not care. Pleas for medicine are flooding in from every neighboring kingdom. Oddly, her old merchant guild remains completely silent. Meanwhile, Master Barnaby approaches Lord Ivar. The greedy merchant asks for entry. Lord Ivar truly lives up to his dark vampiric reputation. Barnaby enters the dim room, finding his master sitting among flickering candles. Lord Ivar looks exhausted. He demands a report on the spreading sickness. The blight is out of control. Projections say 30% of the realm will perish. The merchant is horrified, but Ivar's cold stare proves this is no joke. Starting today, every single noble house is severing ties with the guild. Barnaby snaps, blaming that half-breed Beatrice for this entire horrific catastrophe. It looks planned. She was there when it started and hoarded every single medicinal herb. Predicting a plague is impossible, even for the gods. This was definitely a manufactured strike. Now we have a theory. Lord Dante knew it was coming, but he didn't start it. Could there be a hidden mastermind behind the blight in the original legendary story? Trust me, you and I are going to have a wild time figuring out who started this. All right, you and I are diving into a plot way bigger than a simple plague. Lord Alaric lacks the brains for this. He is just a puppet being played by a master. The goblin asks the golden question, who could actually craft a biological weapon. Lord Ivar has one suspect in mind, a man with the dark talent to brew a magical disease if the mood ever struck him. The most talented necromancer in the entire world, famously known as the Deathless King. He is the true master of rot and black magic. He knows more about disease than anyone else living. Behold the 8th-ranked demon lord, Barbatos. Even the goblin shivers at the name. It is not just about his dark genius. It is his sheer, burning hatred for humanity that makes him the perfect prime suspect here. He has led countless crusades to wipe humans out. At this rate, the entire human race is facing total and utter extinction within weeks. 𝒔 claims that is simply how demons play, but the goblin wonders, is it really 𝑏𝒊𝒖𝒔, and what can they do about it? Going against a high lord is suicide. Their merchant guild thrived by keeping peace with these monsters. One wrong move ruins their entire future. Accusing a demon lord without proof would turn every noble house against the company. But 𒔔 isn't worried. He has the smoking gun. He has the dirt on Isabella and Alaric. Trust me, you and I can already see this old vampire walking into a trap. Suddenly, an assassin emerges from the darkness with a message. Not even the goblin noticed her until she was standing inches away from them. Reading the scroll sends him into a fit of mad laughter. He commands the goblin to summon Queen 𝒡min to the castle immediately. She is the only one bold enough to challenge 𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔. These two hate each other, so she definitely won't be pulling any punches today. The old man is losing his mind, screaming that they will never cross him again. Then, in a blink, he simply vanishes into thin air. He reappears behind the goblin, sinking his fangs into the poor elf's neck. He is literally starting a feast right there in the open. He vows to add Lady Isabella to his macabre collection. Meanwhile, Isabella is desperately trying to wake up our incredibly lazy protagonist from his nap. She shouts his name until he finally groggily stirs. Honestly, if I were her, I would have just slapped him awake minutes ago. Isabella explains there is an urgent royal summons. Lord Alaric is confused, but this isn't just any meeting, it is the big one. The Midnight Council, a day when every demon lord gathers in one hall. Elsewhere, a mysterious witch is singing a haunting, lonely tune. She sings of Alaric and his scandalous romance with Isabella. Isabella just wants him to hurry up and stop being so incredibly slow today. Alaric actually dressed to impress, picking the finest silks from his wardrobe. But for a shut-in like him, leaving home is pure torture. He is whining about going, but she finds it bizarre that a demon lord has no idea what the Midnight Council even is at all. She asks if he has attended before, but he is clueless. Remember, he is just inhabiting this body, he has no memories of the past. This night is where they debate issues that threaten the entire world. It is the only thing keeping the territories from falling into chaos. Alaric could not care less, but Isabella insists. She drops the bombshell. The main topic tonight is the deadly plague sweeping across the land. That is more than enough reason for him to show up, especially since he currently holds the only monopoly on the magical cure himself. If he skips, they might use it as an excuse to invade his lands. Now, you and I know that would end very badly. If they just talk, he can win, but if things get violent, he has Isabella as his secret weapon. That was his real investment. He paid a fortune for her loyalty, after all. He asks how they will travel, since the roads are far too dangerous these days. Isabella, being the perfect assistant, already has a plan. She checks her watch and tells him to just wait a moment for their ride. Suddenly, singing echoes through the air. The witch from before arrives, and Alaric is absolutely stunned by the strange sight he sees before him. He is in shock because this witch looks like a 12-year-old child. But wait, there is not just one. 5 sisters appear. Behold the Briar sisters. Alaric is still in shock, looking at them and asking Isabella if hiring children is really a good idea. At least Alaric has some common sense. Isabella just gives him a deadpan look, clearly disappointed in his lack of worldly knowledge. She explains that you should never judge by appearances. These witches made demonic pacts that keep them looking eternally young for all time. They look like kids, but in reality, they are actually over 500 years old. It is that classic immortal child trope again. He tells them to rise and thanks them for coming. Apparently, our guy actually knows how to charm a lady properly when he wants to. They are already blushing, but Isabella is not amused. Are we about to see a jealous love triangle form? It certainly looks that way. Alaric climbs into the carriage, and the witches start barking orders like they are pilots preparing for a heavy takeoff to the city. They arrive in the city of 𝑣𝒊𝒧𝒖𝒔, which is bustling with life. Alaric notes that the long journey must have been exhausting for them. He invites the witches to dinner as a thank you. Isabella is clearly fuming, but he thinks she is just being a professional assistant. He assumes nobody would be insane enough to attack a demon lord here. They head to a tavern where everyone is celebrating and drinking. Monsters and humans are drinking together in peace. It is a rare sight until a loud commotion breaks the festive mood somewhere nearby. They see a man kicking a dwarf and shouting about poor service. And that is where you and I leave it for today. All right, stick with me because Lord Alaric just realized his opponent is only the 72nd ranked Archduke of the Abyss. Remember, Duke Dante at rank 71 was a legend, so this guy is basically a nobody. Things just got way more interesting. Our protagonist raises his wine glass, catching the eyes of every noble in the room with a cold, calculated, and terrifying stare. He smashes the glass to the floor with a loud crash, declaring that this journey was going to be far more entertaining than expected. Marquis Malphaz spins around at the sound of shattering glass, only to find himself locked in the deadly gaze of our terrifying hero. Alaric gives him a sinister look, staring deep into the coward's very soul as the temperature in the Great Hall seems to drop. Tension rises between Alaric's group and this ill-mannered lord. Malphaz demands to know exactly why they are all staring at him. Alaric just laughs, driving the Marquis into a blind rage. He storms toward our hero, screaming foul insults about Alaric's own mother. Without flinching, Alaric calls for his loyal aide, Lyra. She steps forward, ready for blood. He asks if the Marquis has any guards. Lyra confirms he is alone. Apparently, no one but our lord has guards here. Besides, Malphaz spends all his time in gambling dens. She adds that the Marquis is a known bully who uses his title to torment common folk. He is truly a noble disgrace. Even among the great lords, he is considered trash. Alaric nods, finally understanding the pathetic excuse for a man standing before him. He faces the Marquis, making the coward visibly shake. Malphaz wonders what is wrong with our protagonist's strange, commoner style of clothing. Then he notices the horns. He realizes Lyra is a half-breed siren, and Alaric is the one everyone was whispering about earlier today. Now pay attention here. Lyra begs Alaric not to be rash, since conflicts between archdukes always bring major, bloody complications. Alaric smiles mockingly and asks about the Sovereign Pact. Lyra confirms it is the only thing maintaining order among the 72 lords. Archdukes are the highest-ranking beings with world-shaking power. They use the pact to keep order instead of falling into total chaos. As our hero likely knew, the pact strictly prohibits lords from fighting each other. Starting a childish brawl would lead to punishment. Our hero says he understands. He walks straight up to Malphaz, wearing a truly diabolical expression that would terrify a seasoned royal knight. The enemy lord demands to know who the hell he is. Alaric just scoffs, saying his secret identity is completely irrelevant right now. He tells the Marquis that seeing him bully the weak makes him sick. He orders the trash to get out of his way. Malphaz threatens him, asking if he is ready to die. But Alaric isn't intimidated. He dares the coward to actually try it. Provoked beyond reason, the Marquis loses control and prepares to strike. Lyra tries to step in, but Alaric signals her to stop. This was exactly what he wanted. All he had to do was take one single punch from this idiot to win the entire game. But with his fist inches from Alaric's face, Malphaz stops. He finally recognizes his fellow lord and freezes in his tracks. Alaric is surprised. It seems he isn't dealing with a complete fool after all. Malphaz laughs, putting a hand on Alaric's shoulder. The blue-haired demon mocks him, saying he almost broke the law. He remembers that lords are strictly forbidden from attacking each other. He realizes Alaric was trying to bait him. With a deliberate provocation like that, the plan was almost way too obvious for him. Malphaz laughs even harder, taking the chance to mock his colleague. Alaric stands there, looking visibly frustrated that his plan failed. The Marquis says he must leave, but then his eyes fall on Lyra. He calls her a dirty street rat who seduced a lord. He admits she has pretty eyes, but says she carries the rotten stench of the lower classes. He finds it absolutely revolting. He wonders how she made Alaric fall for her. He touches her, saying he is curious enough to try her out once. Lyra tells him to stop. Being ordered around by a commoner makes the Marquis snap. His face twists into a sadistic grin. You and I saw that coming, right? 𝒔𝒊𝒂𝒔 brings up the sovereign pact again, reminding Alaric of the very specific rules here. After laughing a little more, 𝒔𝒊𝒂𝒔 takes the moment to mock his colleague, acting like Alaric is a target for his pity. This whole humiliating situation leaves our hero feeling somewhat frustrated as he watches the Marquis gloat over his failed plan. The blue-haired demon says he must leave now, but he suddenly notices Lyra standing there, watching the scene with wide eyes. He recognizes her as the one who seduced the Archduke, judging her as nothing more than a dirty street rat in his view. He admits she has pretty eyes, but says she carries the rotten stench that the lower classes normally have in this world. Finally, 𝒔𝒊𝒂𝒔 questions how she managed to make a lord fall in love. He touches her, saying he'd like to try her once. Breaking the invasive mood, Lyra begs the Marquis to stop. But receiving an order from a commoner leaves the lord deeply irritated. The blue-haired demon's face twists. He turns Alaric's attention back to the sovereign pact they were discussing just a few moments ago. With a sadistic expression, he points out that the pact only applies to the conduct between the great lords of the abyss. 𝒔𝒊𝒂𝒔 raises his heavy fist against the defenseless girl. He wants to show Alaric exactly what happens to those without protection. You and I just witnessed a true villain. He punches Lyra with tremendous force, proving the law won't protect her. Valerius targets everyone who is not a noble lord, declaring Alaric is fine before promising to break Alara. He sneers about using her for his sick games before tossing her back to Alaric, mocking Alara like she is nothing. Stick with me, because Alaric stays stone cold even as the Duke calls Alara a street rat while laughing in his face. With a grim look, Alaric simply adjusts his coat. Meanwhile, the blue-haired Duke cackles over his cruel, twisted scheme. Standing in the square with Alara broken on the stones, Valerius laughs and demands to know if everyone is watching him. He shouts that no mercy will be shown to dissenters. Then, Valerius barks an order for every citizen to fall. They must kneel and worship him. To enforce his rule, he uses Alara's battered body as a warning of what happens next. He shows them the price of defiance, promising to force their loyalty. Slowly, the terrified crowd realizes the horror unfolding. Some are shocked, while others simply submit. The cruel Duke just keeps laughing, unable to hide his growing madness. He looks down at the girl and crushes her with his boot, delighting in the sound of her agonizing screams. Watch closely now. Despite the Duke's sadistic joy, Alaric remains eerily calm, refusing to give the villain a reaction. Valerius taunts him, asking how it feels to watch his partner get pulverized while he stands there, completely helpless. He mocks Alaric's inaction, then turns to the crowd. Shaking with manic energy, Valerius demands their absolute attention. He screams for them to chant his name. To him, he is the king of this world, the great Lord Valerius. But his joy turns to pure rage when he notices Alaric is actually chuckling. He snarls, demanding to know what is funny. Alaric calls it nothing special. He just finds it amusing how arrogantly the Duke speaks while standing on such thin ice. He wonders if anyone here will truly follow a fool. This drives the blue-haired Duke into a total, foaming frenzy. Valerius calls him a sore loser, barking that if they do not follow him, he will break them by force. He points to the girl, calling her a dirty mongrel. Alaric just smiles ironically and asks a very dangerous question. Has anyone in this world ever actually been conquered by you? Valerius is livid, but then something shocks everyone. Behind the Duke, Alara slowly stands up. She wipes the blood from her face, eyes fixed directly on her tormentor. Valerius curses Alaric, screaming that he should have stayed silent, because now the Duke's wrath is truly bottomless. Alara doesn't blink. In her mind, this man has committed the ultimate sin, disrespecting the authority of her master. He strikes her again for the defiance, but something impossible happens. Alara doesn't flinch, she doesn't yield at all. She stands resilient, staring him down with cold eyes. As he raises his fists to strike again, the tension peaks. Valerius screams at her to stop being arrogant. An insect like her belongs on her knees, groveling in the dirt. I know what you're thinking. Why isn't Alaric helping? Well, he knows Alara better than anyone else here. She grew up in the gutters, surviving as an outcast since childhood. Pain like this, it is nothing new to her. The Duke's fists simply don't hurt her anymore. This realization sends Valerius into a blind, screaming rage as he strikes. He keeps screaming that he is king. Meanwhile, Alaric politely apologizes to a commoner while borrowing a small dagger. Alaric finally moves to intervene. Alara is still standing, which makes Valerius start to panic. Something is very wrong. Why won't she go down? He can't understand why this girl is looking at him with such terrifying, deep intensity. Her gaze pierces him. In his fractured mind, Valerius can only think of murder to silence the fear rising inside. But as he prepares to end her life, Alaric moves. A silver flash crosses the blue-haired Duke's face. One perfect, horizontal strike. The blade carves a path directly across both of the villain's eyes in a spray of red. Amidst the screams and blood, the crowd freezes. Alaric looks satisfied, while Valerius clutches his face in pure agony. The Duke falls to his knees, blinded. With a cynical smirk, Alaric tells him he clearly didn't need those eyes anyway. If he couldn't see the true strength of his opponent, sight was a waste. Alara suddenly asks what he has done. She worries about the consequences of blinding a peer, but Alaric ignores her words. He simply pulls her close. He holds her tight, whispering a soft thank you. For the first time, Alara feels truly cherished and loved. Alaric's gaze turns sharp again as he thanks her from his heart. Then, he asks Alara for her left hand. He says he wanted a better moment for this gift, but now it will shine brighter than ever before. Alara stares at the sparkling ring, stunned. She asks what it means, but Alaric takes her hand gently. He tells her to stay silent and watch. He raises her hand high, introducing himself to the people of Milidor. And trust me, you and I are about to watch Alaric, the 71st Lord, introduce Alara as his new. All right, you and I are about to see a High Lord risk everything for the woman he truly loves. Status doesn't matter. Even if their love is forbidden, he declares to the world that they will stay together. He has no personal grudge against Lord Andrius, but the man crossed a line by hurting his beloved Lala. Facing the square, our hero asks if this injustice can be overlooked. The answer is a cold, resounding no. Even a High Lord cannot escape the truth. His declaration echoes through the city, leaving everyone in total shock. No one can believe it. A ruler is actually breaking the sacred laws just to save the woman he loves. Watching the commotion, 𝑑antalion tells his dear Lala to look back. Things are about to get very interesting. He turns to the people, claiming they all submit to a tyrant whose right to rule is a total lie. As he speaks, the seeds of rebellion take root. Some citizens are already starting to buy in and revolt. 𝑑antalion shouts that if true justice still exists here, then this man must face a heavy judgment for his crimes. Pay attention, this is where the tension breaks. Andrius clutches his bleeding eye, screaming at our hero to shut up. He mocks the trial, claiming their rank difference is too small. He thinks 𝑑antalion is just a weak, empty shell. He laughs through the blood, asserting that 𝑑antalion violated the law by attacking him in front of the people. The blue-haired noble points his finger, declaring that the hero will be the one facing execution for this assault. He throws his hands up, commanding the guards to punish the hero for breaking the common law of the land. If the citizens refuse to obey, he threatens to end them all. He is still convinced he is untouchable here. He claims the hero has no right to judge him, but 𝑑antalion just walks closer, a dark laugh escaping him. Our hero mocks the tyrant, saying he was being arrogant even when he understood the entire situation completely wrong. Andrius is baffled by those words. 𝑑antalion calls for silence again, demanding the absolute attention of every single citizen. In the name of the High Lords, he declares that Andromalius will face trial, sending a wave of unease through. He is not taking charge. Instead, he is handing the final verdict over to the people themselves right now. As everyone watches, 𝑑antalion says that lords only have power because the people allow them to exist and live. But Andreas was born into his title. He never understood the real meaning of power or duty to others. He wasted his time drinking and gambling while the poor suffered. Is that really the kind of lord you want? You and I both know the answer. The world exists for the citizens, not for a selfish man like him. The natives start to cheer, as he asks if such a monster deserves to live for the nation's future. He throws the decision to the public, telling them it is time to rise as the true heroes of Nilin. Andreas screams for silence, desperate to force the citizens back into their roles as obedient servants to his desires. 𝑑antalion just smiles, asking why a great lord is panicking. He knows exactly what is causing this sudden fear. It was that small move he made earlier. Now the blue-haired demon is blind and afraid of being defenseless. His pride is shattered. He can only scream insults at the protagonist, begging him to shut up over and over. Our hero just nods. He understands perfectly. If someone decided to finish him now, he would be totally helpless. Shaking with rage, the tyrant enters a state of pure despair. Then, suddenly, someone impales him from behind. He gasps, demanding to know who did this. But the angry citizen stays silent, refusing to answer the man's question. 𝑑antalion approaches, placing his hands on the lord's shoulders. Everything so far has gone exactly according to his plan. He whispers his sincere thanks for playing along. Faced with this revelation, Andreas can barely process the hero's words. He listens to the sounds of the square, and finally realizes the cruel reality of the trap he fell in. 𝑑antalion is gone. All he can hear now are the heavy footsteps of an angry mob preparing to strike. The blind lord is left alone, pleading for his life and praying for a mercy he never once gave. He begs the people to reconsider their choice, but the decision is out of his hands. It is over. He listens to the sounds of the place and realizes the cruel reality that he is now alone. 𝑑antalion has vanished. All that remains are the shouts of angry people preparing for a collective attack against him. All the blind lord can do is plead for his life and hope for some compassion from the village. In an act of desperation, he asks the people to reconsider, but his fate was already sealed by his actions. And trust me, you and I just saw a perfect example of reaping exactly what you have sown. All right, you and I are witnessing a classic case of well-deserved karma as Lord 𝑑antalion finishes his grim business. He gathers his allies to depart, leaving Andreas behind to face judgment for every crime he ever committed. The punishment matches his own past brutality, but as they leave the central region, 𝑑antalion admits he is exhausted. He apologizes to his companions, explaining that dinner must wait because he desperately needs to rest until tomorrow morning. His crew is very understanding, and the blonde sister offers to guide our weary hero back to his lodgings. However, upon looking around, 𝑑antalion notices that one member of their small group has suddenly vanished into thin air. The blonde witch awkwardly explains that 𝑏𝒆𝒏 has a habit of wandering off alone, without ever giving an explanation. Our protagonist takes this seriously, but eventually relents, knowing the safety of the sisters is his current priority. Stick with me, because 𝑑antalion has a secret request for the sisters that leaves the blonde completely baffled. Elsewhere, a mysterious witch comments that this bloody spectacle was far more entertaining than she had ever expected. She mentions 𝑑antalion with growing curiosity, believing that the next show he puts on will be even more massive. Inside a prominent building, a man frets about the upcoming 𝑣𝒊𝒅𝒔 night, having lost contact with Lord 𝑨𝒓𝒎𝒚 recently. Standing before a heavy iron door, a goblin servant named Toril calls out for his master, wondering where he is. He opens the door carefully, questioning if his lord has returned from his mysterious week-long travels yet. Ignoring the coffins scattered about, Toril enters the abandoned room and assumes his master is still away from home. That is when a strange noise from above catches his attention, drawing his eyes toward the highest window sill. The servant is astonished to see a small witch sitting cross-legged and staring down at him with intensity. She gives him a terrifying look and demands to know if he has been properly managing the company business. The witch leaps to the ground while Toril stutters, asking the master where on earth he has been hiding. It is revealed that this little witch is actually Lord 𝑨𝒓𝒎𝒚, who has been personally spying on 𝒓𝒐𝒏 and 𝑑antalion. Toril is intrigued by what his master discovered, but Ivar admits he found nothing regarding the spreading plague yet. However, Ivar witnessed something far more interesting at court, and Toril is eager to hear what that could be. I know what you are thinking. And yes, Ivar has officially figured out that 𝑑antalion has a major weakness. He believes 𝑑antalion is lost in the agony of love, meaning his true vulnerability is his connection to 𝒓𝒐𝒏. Ivar asks for an update on Lady Paimon, and Toril confirms the High Noble has promised her total support. The goblin informs him that she will spare no effort to help them, causing Ivar to burst into laughter. Ivar enters his coffin and shuts the door, laughing as he claims to finally understand the path ahead. A powerful purple aura floods the room as blue energy spheres begin a shocking transformation within the dark casket. Ivar prepares to exit the coffin in his true form, commanding Toril to repeat his every word to Paimon. He reflects on the 100 years he has waited for this moment, knowing that tomorrow is the big day. 24 hours after the incident, Walpurgis night finally arrives, with castle guards standing alert for the noble guests. It is reported that a rank 9 demon lord has arrived, and everyone begins to prepare for the entrance. Some among the crowd are astonished, while others marvel at the arrival of such a powerful and famous noble. 2 white horses pull a magnificent carriage, as the elite guests look on in awe at the approaching noblewoman. The guests wearing masquerade masks bow as the demon lord descends the stairs, thanking everyone for the warm welcome. A man replies that the pleasure is all theirs, as they have been eagerly awaiting the grand Lady Paimon. She asks if the arrangements with Ivar are settled, and her attendant confirms that everything has gone perfectly well. Everything seems to be going right, so she decides to enjoy the party despite feeling slightly uncomfortable and alone. Not seeing any familiar faces makes her uneasy, leading her to think she might have arrived far too early. Suddenly, an announcer with a mustache shouts for the crowd to clear a path for the next arriving noble. Paimon becomes curious about the identity of the next lord, as a pair of angry black horses charge forward. The carriage causes a massive commotion, leaving the entire crowd anxious to see who is behind the dark curtains. The driver brings the aggressive horses to a halt, and the demon lord kicks the carriage door wide open. She loudly complains that her backside hurts from sitting so long, leaving the sophisticated crowd in total shock. And that is where you and I meet the goddess of black magic, Barbatos, who thinks everything smells like crap. All right, you and I are diving into a den of vipers, where even the high lords are out for blood. Beatrice calls her rival the harlot of the court, while Penelope mocks her for having terrible taste as usual. Beatrice snaps back, claiming she heard the Duchess spent the night with some beastmen and looked absolutely exhausted. Penelope just sighs, telling the girl she should learn to act like a lady instead of a street brat. She suggests Beatrice try acting like an adult, though with a child's body, finding a man must be impossible. Mockingly, she adds that Beatrice will likely stay immature forever, then tells her to stop this habit of belittling. This sends Beatrice into a blind rage, making her scream that she'll cut off Penelope's massive chest right now. Suddenly, the tension breaks as the royal herald announces the arrival of another high lord to the conclave. An annoyed Beatrice turns to see who's interrupting, but she's not ready for the spectacle that's about to unfold. Now watch this entrance. Lord Julian steps out and tells Lady Alina to take his hand if she's nervous. The crowd is stunned to see this rumored low-rank lord, while Alina feels intimidated by the powerful Beatrice there. Julian whispers that he knows exactly who they are, and more importantly, they definitely know who he is too. Radiating pure confidence, Julian tells his companion there's nothing to fear as he prepares to handle these arrogant lords. The 2 powerful ladies can't stop staring at our hero, but he completely ignores them and leads Alina forward. Rewind to 30 minutes before their arrival, inside the carriage where Alina admits she's terrified to attend the event. Julian asks why she's so nervous, wondering if this high society gala is just a bit too much for her. He looks a little hurt, asking who will be his dance partner if she decides to back out now. Would she really let him walk into that den of lions all alone, without a beautiful lady by his side. Alina gets visibly flustered by his words, so Julian asks if she's still upset about their moment yesterday. She remembers his passionate declaration of love, but Julian just casually says he had no choice while she blushes. After a long silence, Alina argues that the midnight conclave is reserved strictly for the highest-ranking nobles only. Bringing someone of her status to such a holy event would be considered an absolute outrage to the kingdom. Julian realizes she's still overthinking things and promises her that everything is under control because of their new status. Let's be real, Alina is now officially his fiancée, so he tells her to hold her head up high. They are the most talked-about couple in the realm, and they can't let down the fans waiting to see them. Alina is speechless, wondering what her lord is thinking or if he's actually lost his mind this time around. She figured the whole lover routine was just a clever ruse for him to secure another massive gold loan. Besides, one wrong move tonight could spark a second great war, affecting the lives of millions across the land. With the plague and yesterday's chaos looming, she wonders how Julian can remain so terrifyingly calm through it all. Finally, it's reported that the carriage has come to a halt as they arrive at the majestic castle gates. Alina calls out to Julian, who is busy scanning the crowd of elite guests with a very impressed look. Laughing, our hero starts to step out, but Alina tries to stop him, thinking she should go first. In a display of true chivalry, Julian steps down first and extends his hand, inviting his lady to join him. Staring at the massive fortress, Alina realizes her only choice is to take his hand and dive into the fire. But she kills the mood immediately, ignoring his hand and stepping down alone to avoid drawing any more attention. Changing the subject, Julian notes the biting cold, thinking about a certain event that's destined to happen very soon. Anxious, Alina points out all the powerful nobles watching them, and the two high lords lock eyes with Julian. Julian just says he already knows, as he starts walking directly toward the two most dangerous women in the room. Standing before them, Julian greets Duchess Penelope and Lady Beatrice, claiming it's an honor to finally meet such legends. With a sly, villainous smirk, he introduces himself as Lord Julian, the lowest-ranking noble of the House d'Allian. Beatrice is instantly annoyed, telling this low-rank trash to shut his mouth before she decides to bury him right here. Julian just bows gracefully, apologizing and claiming that as a newcomer, he's bound to make a few clumsy mistakes. He adds that he's never seen such radiant, important figures before and simply couldn't walk past without a greeting. With that same mocking look in his eyes, Julian apologizes again in case he somehow offended the great lady's honor. Trust me, you and I are just getting started with this master manipulator who's about to flip the nobility upside down. All right, stick with me, because Lord Julian's icy composure just caught Lady Barbara's attention. He's playing it cool. She assumes he's low-ranking, but Penelope stays close. Surprisingly, he doesn't show a single hint of fear right now. Seeing his confidence, she smiles, finally realizing the true potential of this man who's been the talk of the town. Barbara struts past Penelope with a loud, mocking laugh. Penelope immediately picks up on the hidden message in her eyes. Hiding behind her fan, Penelope finds her colleague's reaction incredibly irritating. This whole situation is just getting on her nerves. Once Barbara leaves, Penelope approaches Julian. She hopes her words won't offend him, but he's become quite the local celebrity. She mentions hearing rumors about Lord Julian's rise. He just stares back with a perfectly blank, almost haunting expression. She asks about his companion. Lappy's bows low, introducing herself as the loyal aide serving the great house of Julian. Penelope tells her to drop the formalities. Everything is fine, and she seems genuinely charmed by the young girl's presence. She brushes her fan against Lappy's cheek, complimenting the sheer beauty of such a young and radiant face. How bold. Julian isn't thrilled about this, but he keeps his mask on, complimenting the High Lord for her incomparable, legendary beauty. The compliment works. She laughs playfully while stepping closer to Julian, making her bold intentions very clear to everyone watching. She calls him quite handsome. Julian accepts the praise gracefully, showing the poise of a true and seasoned high noble. Now watch this carefully. She leans in close, pressing against him while suggesting a much more private conversation later tonight. Penelope steps back and says goodbye. They'll definitely be seeing each other again very soon. A bold move. Julian and Lapis remain calm at first. However, Julian's expression quickly shifts as he reflects on that strange little encounter. He calls the whole event interesting. It was a bold move by the High Lord, and he's definitely intrigued now. He looks at Lapis, but she just glares back with pure disgust. She's clearly not amused by his lady-killing charms. Julian thinks that even with 1,000 lives, he'd never be safe. Meanwhile, the ball continues with music and dancing. The grand hall is alive with nobles. Julian observes the scene, noting that everything seems perfectly in place for now. He praises the venue, but something feels off. He calls Lapis over to see if she noticed it too. Something's wrong. Once she confirms his suspicions, Julian realizes the trap. There's no escaping the watchful eyes of the royal court now. You saw that too, right? They're being watched by every single person in this massive ballroom right at this moment. The guests try to act indifferent, but their eyes are glued to Julian. The tension in the air is absolutely suffocating. Julian feels like a caged animal in a zoo. He wonders if they really deserve all this predatory, unwanted attention tonight. Everyone is staring as if they're looking at rare, exotic creatures. It's enough to make anyone's skin crawl with unease. They're being eyed like prey before a feast. Julian asks Lapis if these people are guild members or just nobles. Lapis admits she doesn't know for sure. Only the top brass of the guild have access to that sensitive information. However, she knows the factions. 40% follow Penelope, and another 40% belong to the House of Barbara. The rest follow Lord Maris or remain independent. It's a delicate and dangerous balance of power inside this crowded room. The rest belong to Lord Maris or are independent. Julian understands and looks around to find any hidden guild spies. He looks around, trying to think about how many people here are actually guild lackeys. He searches for an escape. He puts himself in their shoes, wondering how to escape. Suddenly, every light in the grand hall vanishes into darkness. The guests start complaining instantly, but our hero remains perfectly calm and indifferent to the sudden chaos and loud shouting. Amidst the darkness, a blue light begins to appear, blossoming through rows of fire lanterns. Julian watches with deep suspicion. Our hero is curious about what comes next. A mysterious man with a cane slowly approaches the center of the hall. He welcomes everyone to the meeting, greeting the crowd with a hand over his heart in a display of pride. He announces that he'll be presiding tonight. He introduces himself as Lord 𝑨𝒓𝒎𝒏 from the Golden Merchant Guild. Julian can barely contain his excitement at seeing the man. He quickly calls Lapis over to confirm his identity. He asks if it's really him. She confirms he's the wealthiest vampire in the kingdom and the guild's ancient owner. She mentions she had to betray her former boss for Julian's sake. Julian laughs behind his hand in pure amusement. He realizes the true boss has arrived on the scene. Lord 𝑨𝒓𝒎𝒏 thinks he's waited long enough for this moment. He's finally found his former servant, Lapis. Despite being a commoner-born hybrid, she managed to deceive him for years. And trust me, you and I are about to watch him plan her total downfall in front of the entire court. Let's dive in. She betrayed him to become the Dark Duke's mistress, but today we witness her ultimate downfall. All right, you and I are watching the wall purges begin as a lord calls for order, but someone insults him. Suddenly, a voice mocks the lord, calling him a senile old windbag who has been barking for too long. It is Lady Barbados, stumbling and drunk, though our main character and Lord 𝑨𝒓𝒎𝒏 watch the girl with absolute disgust. Barbados claims she had a grueling trip and simply needed to rest, complaining about the stinking breath of her host. Wiping wine from her lips, the girl says she feels sick and demands someone bring her a real drink. She insults Lord 𝑨𝒓𝒎𝒏's hospitality as weak and boring, while Lord Dantalion watches the chaos, secretly rooting for her. Lord 𝑨𝒓𝒎𝒏 says he understands her frustration, but she snaps back, asking if the old man is challenging her. He denies it politely, then turns as a new figure enters the room. It is the haughty Lady Paimon. Paimon warns 𝒓𝒐𝒏 to watch her mouth, claiming she is ashamed to share the same blood as such a brat. She praises the beautiful hall Lord 𝒓𝒎💏 prepared, while the short High Lord drinks the last of her wine. Infuriated by the interference, the small girl loses her temper and suddenly hurls her empty bottle at Lady Paimon. The glass shatters right in front of Paimon, splashing wine across her clothes as the tension in the room explodes. 𝒓𝒏𝒐𝒏 refuses to back down, telling her rival to go home and play with dolls instead of acting like she is in charge. Paimon sneers at the girl's vulgarity, comparing her childish behavior to her tiny, undeveloped body in a cruel mock. She claims adults understand etiquette, something she supposes a brat like 𝒓𝒏𝒐𝒏 will never be able to comprehend properly. Being called a child pushes 𝒓𝒏𝒐𝒏 over the edge, and she prepares to strike down the fellow High Lord. Seeing her enemy shaken, Paimon doubles down on the mockery, asking if the little girl is about to cry. Now pay attention, because 𝒓𝒏𝒐𝒏 enters a total. Stick with me because tension is rising as someone finally steps in to stop these two high-ranking demon lords. This man imposes himself, ordering silence from the high-ranking duo. It is Lord Marbas, the infamous fifth-ranked demon lord of the noble houses. After a lecture from a higher-ranking duke, the brawlers back down and vanish from the hall immediately. Lord Marbas offers an apology and asks Duke 𝒓𝒎💏 to continue his speech from earlier while 𝒓𝒎💏 waits. 𝒓𝒎💏 is impressed by the Lord's presence, feeling that every key player is now finally seated at the table. With the council officially starting, everyone shares icy stares, while Lady Lapis notices that Dantalion is looking oddly thrilled. He senses the terrifying pressure radiating from these lords, realizing the true gap in power between himself and the elite. As a low-ranking demon, he knows one tiny mistake would lead to him being ripped apart by everyone in this room. Pay attention now, because while Dantalion wonders about 𝒓𝒎💏's scheme, he feels like he's missing something critical. Suddenly, Duchess Paimon cuts in, announcing that there is a grave matter they must address before they can even begin. 𝒓𝒎💏 and Marbas ask for the details, wondering what news could be so urgent right now. She drops a bombshell. Count Andromas was found slaughtered this morning, leaving the entire council in absolute silence. His body was completely torn apart, clearly a cold-blooded murder that the other demons simply cannot believe right now. Marbas demands confirmation, and Paimon stands her ground, claiming she has undeniable proof of the slaying. Marbas asks if she knows the killer, and Paimon immediately reveals that the executioners were the people of Millene. You and I both know there is more. She claims a mastermind within this very room was pulling the strings. Lady Lapis is visibly shaken by the accusation against them, but Dantalion quickly calms her down, whispering that she has no reason to feel afraid right now. He begins to analyze Paimon's long, detailed speech, sensing that this is a calculated move to destroy his reputation. He deduces that Paimon, the company, and Duke 𝒓𝒎💏 are all working together to set a perfect trap for him. He tried to piece together the entire puzzle. He wonders if another lord has been spying on them, and just how long this surveillance has been happening. He realized they were clearly being watched all along, and trust me, you and I are about to see this meeting explode. Stick with me because as Duchess Margaret stared at him, she finally understood the truth, just as Lord 𝒓𝒎💏 asked her. He demanded to know who made the peasants kill Count Andromas, as Margaret pointed a finger with a truly terrifying gaze. She accused High Lord Alaric, claiming the 71st noble had manipulated the mob into murdering one of their own noble kin. Every eye turned toward our protagonist. Beside him, Lady Catherine wore a cold expression that matched the Duchess's own lethal intensity. The gathered crowd couldn't believe a High Lord would orchestrate the death of a man from his own royal race. Trust me, you and I are about to see a scandal that threatens the order of the Shadow Realm. The lady fell to her knees, clutching her gown while swearing she was telling nothing but the truth. She accused Lord Julian of the crime, demanding a public hearing be held right then and there. Lord Ivar had already bribed his witnesses, leaving Julian with absolutely zero chance of escaping the trap. He asked Julian directly if the boy had any defense against the heavy accusations thrown at him. To everyone's shock, Julian just started laughing and told the court he had no objections at all. He took full responsibility for the incident, confessing to the murder while the noble lords watched in silence. It was clear Ivor wanted to join forces with Lady Margaret by using this scandal as their excuse. They intended to crush Julian and steal the onyx lily, the only cure for the growing crimson fever. But the whole situation was a total accident, as Julian never even planned to meet Sir Andrew. This meant someone had been lurking in the darkness, tracking his group from the very start. Someone had been watching them closely, only to vanish into thin air once the damage was done. Stick with me, this spy was Beatrice of the Shadow Coven, and Julian was totally baffled. He couldn't understand why they didn't just attack him directly, since he was just a minor lord. But after reflecting on the situation, he realized they actually lacked the power to kill him openly. They needed the grand inquest to happen, so their move against him would look completely legal. Lady Margaret had been tracking Julian's every move from the second he arrived at the capital. This led Julian to realize the terrifying truth: he wasn't the main target of this entire scheme. He began to wonder who they were really after, looking back at every event leading to this trial. Since you can't predict a plague, Julian deduced that someone must have released the sickness on purpose. He realized the real target was the woman they blamed for creating the disease, Countess Victoria. Their plan was to frame the Countess as the mastermind behind the plague to destroy her reputation. Julian was just a puppet in their game, a tool used to strike at the powerful Countess. They had to play this carefully, because a direct attack on Victoria meant an all-out bloodbath. So they watched Julian instead, hoping he would lead them to the evidence they needed for war. The summit made perfect sense now, with every High Lord present to witness his scripted downfall. Ivor and Margaret intended to break him until he admitted to being a servant of Victoria. You and I both know the politics here are brutal, and Julian was totally on his own. The Countess would simply deny knowing him to save herself, leaving Julian to face the executioner alone. He would be condemned for starting the plague, while they seized the healing herbs for themselves. Seeing the brilliance of the trap, Julian actually felt a strange spark of respect for Lord Ivor. This was the most dangerous opponent he had ever faced, a man with a truly sharp mind. However, none of that mattered if Victoria wasn't actually working with his enemies behind his back. He just needed to figure out if Duke Sterling had already chosen a side in this conflict. If the Duke knew the plan, he would have questioned the Countess directly about the deadly disease. Ivor thought Julian was the weak link, but the young lord was about to flip the script. Back in the present, the entire courtroom was paralyzed by Julian's sudden and calm confession. Lord Ivor froze in shock, wondering if he had actually heard the young lord's words correctly. Julian just smiled and asked Ivor if the old man had a problem with his honest confession. The elder was speechless, as Julian demanded the formal hearing begin exactly as they had planned. But before they started, the young lord raised a finger to make one final, crucial request. He knew Ivor wanted to judge the case himself to ensure the verdict went his way. He turned to Duke Sterling, asking for a truly neutral voice to oversee the entire hearing. Julian argued that in a clash between lords, it was only natural for a third party to act as judge. And that's where we leave it, trust me, you and I won't want to miss what happens next. Amidst the noise, Lord Ivar tried to keep control, but Grand Duke Marbaz stepped in to take over the trial himself. Lord Ivar and Margaret agreed to the new terms, though both were clearly furious that things weren't going as planned. With the case handed to the High Duke, Marbaz told Alaric to step forward if he wanted to prove his innocence. He walked toward the center while whispering to Catherine, hinting that the two of them had already prepared a secret trap. Catherine couldn't understand how Alaric could be laughing while standing in such a desperate and deadly situation right now. Alaric and Margaret glared at one another with burning hatred as they finally approached the center for the formal hearing. Now pay attention here, because this cold greeting from the Duchess is where the real psychological warfare actually begins today. He simply smiled back, saying it was no trouble at all since he had also been wanting to speak with her. Alaric felt like he was in a classic duel, treating Margaret as his ultimate rival in this battle of high wits. Grand Duke Marbaz opened the floor, stating that a majority vote from the nobles would decide who was right or wrong. Watching the crowd, Alaric felt the tension. Nearly every demon and lord in the room was clearly siding against him today. Lady Catherine warned him that 40% of the people here were already loyal to Margaret and her massive army. He was no match for her brute strength, so he decided to use the forbidden knowledge he gained from the game. Using a secret skill from the Crown's gambit, a glowing interface appeared directly over the angry Duchess's head like magic. This mark of the siren ability, used by Alaric himself, began to reveal all of Margaret's hidden stats and private information. He remembered that at its max level, this power could even read minds, but for now, it was only at level 1. The only data available was her favor rating with the lords around her, and things were looking very grim for Alaric. Even though most of the favor statuses were at 0, the boy wasn't discouraged. Knowing this was already more than enough. Grand Duke Marbaz started the official proceedings, giving Margaret the floor to question Alaric about her serious murder accusations. She asked him about his time in the slums of Silverton yesterday, knowing exactly what he had done in that place. "I know what you're thinking, Alaric is walking into a trap, but watch how he skillfully maneuvers through these dangerous questions." He admitted her story was true, then decided to tell the facts from his own point of view to the court. Alaric shocked the entire room by confessing that he had blinded Count Andromas before the man finally met his end. Margaret argued that even if the peasants couldn't handle him, killing a lord was a violation of the common law of nobles. The favor of every demon present, which was already low, began to drop even faster after hearing his brutal and bloody confession. Lord Ivar began to laugh at the disaster, asking the boy if he had completely lost his mind during this trial. Margaret warned Alaric to be careful, reminding him that calling a high lord a piece of trash was a crime. But he laughed back, promising that he would never stop cursing that man because he was nothing more than total garbage. Alaric shouted that a dog like him deserved a pathetic death, and the more he spoke, the more his favor ratings plummeted. As the protagonist insulted the dead, the Duchess began to lose her cool, furious that he would disrespect one of them. Margaret screamed that despite everything, Count Andromas was still one of their own, but Alaric was quick to cut her off. He disagreed entirely, shouting that the man was never one of them, but was instead a total disgrace to their entire race. Death was too kind for him, so he prayed that the devils of hell would torment his wretched soul for eternity. He was tired of her defending a man he called trash, and his constant insults finally pushed the woman over the edge. Margaret snapped in an instant, losing 40 points of favor with Alaric as her face twisted in pure and blinding rage. She screamed at the boy to change his tone immediately, while his standing with the rest of the lords hit 0. Grand Duke Marbaz interrupted, reminding the boy that this was a noble place and he needed to watch his tongue. He told Alaric to show respect, so the boy just laughed and placed his right hand over his pounding heart. He bowed deeply, apologizing to the Grand Duke while explaining that his dark emotions had simply gotten the better of him. And that's where we leave it, because trust me, you and I are about to see that favor was never the goal. He's playing his rival Lord Julian like a fiddle, and their affinity has already hit 50 points as planned. Lord Julian sips wine while watching the chaos, knowing a majority vote will soon decide the fate of everyone. Pay attention, now 40% of Lady Alara's faction will turn on her, but he still needs more support. He needs the 20% from House Sterling or Julian's 40% to make this risky political gambit work. He will provoke Lady Alara just to please Lord Julian, wondering all the while what was actually going through her head. All right, you and I are about to watch a masterclass in manipulation from our main character. The young lord clutched his chest, offering a humble apology to Lady Payman after their heated exchange. He begged for forgiveness, extending his deepest regrets to every noble watching this tense standoff in silence. Now watch this part carefully. He's about to flip the script on everyone in this room. He claimed to be just an immature noble, a low-ranking lord who simply couldn't control his emotions. Painting himself as a pathetic nobody with no titles, he claimed he'd never dream of committing such acts. He'd never strike an elder or kill a child for a simple greeting, leaving the entire court speechless. Lord 𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𔔑 finally broke the silence, demanding to know exactly where 𝑑𝒐𝒠𝒠𝒠 was going with this bold speech. Hiding his face, 𝑑𝒐𝒠𝒠𝒠 laughed, asking if they were truly blind to the blood on Lord 𝒓𝒎𝒻's hands. In the city of Nahum, 54 innocent lives were snuffed out, a revelation that sent shockwaves through the crowd. Among the dead were 12 innocent children, victims of a drunken monster who committed sins even devils would fear. They even found a woman discarded in the sewers, and if they counted the wounded, the number of victims was insane. Of this so-called High Lord, the victims would reach a staggering total of 327 souls. Lord 𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𔔑 demanded to know if these accusations were true, while 𝑑𝒐𝒠𝒠𝒠 kept his icy, confident gaze fixed on them. He confirmed the reports, verified by his loyal vassal, though deep down, he knew he was playing a dangerous game. Remembering his deal with 𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔, he knew he'd exaggerated, but dead men don't exactly get to tell their side. He recounted the incident, telling how he heard an old man's screams before coming face to face with the villain. 𝒓𝒎𝒻 had challenged him immediately, demanding to know why a low-born noble dared to look his way. The brute approached him, and only then did 𝒐𝒠𝒠𝒠 realize he was dealing with a high-ranking lord of chaos. Instead of a fair fight, 𝒓𝒎𝒻 delivered a brutal kick to the stomach of the woman 𝒐𝒠𝒠𝒠 truly loved. After helping 𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔, he'd unleashed a flurry of punches, striking the monster's face over and over without any mercy. You and I can see the trap being set, but Lady 𝒂𝒻, she's completely lost in his web of lies. He asked what any man should do when his beloved is subjected to such a mindless act of violence. Should he have stood still and watched? Lady 𝒂𝒻, known for her sympathy toward the common folk, hesitated. She was worried about the plague victims, unlike Lord 𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔, who blamed 𝑑𝒐𝒠𝒠𝒠𝒠 and Lady 𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 for everything. 𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒃 couldn't forgive them, but 𝑑𝒐𝒠𝒠𝒠𝒠 saw through the woman's sense of justice, knowing it was her greatest flaw. Her morality was admirable, but in this Game of Thrones, it was a double-edged sword he intended to use. He had total control, turning this trial into a public execution as he shouted for the crowd's full attention. He roared that 𝒓𝒎𝒻 was a despicable worm who had no right to hold the title of a lord. If he lived, the body count would only rise, so they had to focus on the victims he'd already claimed. He turned to the people, asking if a monster like that truly deserved the mercy of a quick death. The silent crowd was gripped by his words, and 𝒐𝒠𝒠𝒠𝒠 stepped closer to Lady 𝒂𝒻 to finish it. He asked if she still considered that trash one of their own, knowing her reputation was on the line. Their noble image would be dragged through the mud if they defended a piece of filth like Lord 𝒓𝒎𝒻. He waited for her answer, watching as Lady 𝒂𝒻 began to panic, her entire plan crumbling to dust. She knew she could never be linked to a man like him, her mind racing for a way out. Pressured by the eyes of the court, she realized there was only one choice she could possibly make here. She admitted 𝒐𝒠𝒠𝒠𝒠 was right, a confession that made Lady 𝒓𝒑𝒊𝒖𝒔 burst into a fit of wild, mocking laughter. She thanked the young lord for purging such a pest from their ranks on behalf of the entire kingdom. She turned to the crowd, asking if they didn't all agree with the justice they had just witnessed today. She laughed uncontrollably as the tide of public opinion shifted, leaving Lord 𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 and the other nobles in shock. Even 𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 struggled to keep up, wondering what kind of monster her master had truly become before her eyes. While 𝒓𝒐𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 tried to solve the puzzle, Lady 𝒓𝒑𝒊𝒖𝒔 stepped forward, her laughter echoing through the grand hall. She confessed that she'd wanted to kill 𝒓𝒎𝒻 herself, but the coward had been hiding from her for weeks. And that's where we leave it, trust me, you and I just witnessed a legend in the making. All right, stick with me. You and I are about to see how a cold-blooded execution turns into a massive standing ovation. Lady 𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 stood alone at first, asking the court if they truly intended to side with that traitorous snake, Count Anthony. Terrified of her wrath, the nobles joined the applause, their faces twisted in a mix of shock and pure confusion. Lord Marcus watched as Barbara declared it a blessed day, her silver tongue already weaving a trap for everyone present. She mockingly wondered how the High King would react if he knew these lords defended such a brutal public execution. The room erupted in thunderous clapping as the nobles realized they were trapped in a political game they couldn't win. As Barbara spun her web of words, she pointed directly at Sir Daniel, ready to crown him their new champion. She claimed that even now, the people of Newark would be hailing this demon as a savior for ending a tyrant's life. He had broken the sacred laws of the realm to protect his lady, a hero driven by love. She laughed mockingly. It was a brilliant twist. A demon turned into a legendary hero, and she turned to ask Lady Penelope's opinion on it. Now watch this part closely. Penelope was spiraling, unable to believe the situation had slipped so far out of her control. She couldn't understand why a man who shattered their most sacred laws was being cheered like a king right before her. Lord Marcus finally had enough of the chaos and roared for silence, his voice echoing like thunder through the great hall. He warned that the order of this hearing had been destroyed and demanded total compliance from the frightened crowd immediately. The nobles fell silent, and even Barbara was impressed, usually finding nothing but filth and incompetence among the lower ranks. She thought to herself that a man this useful hadn't appeared in centuries, eyeing him with newfound, dangerous interest. She calmly told Marcus that she had no further intention of disrupting the legal proceedings. Marcus looked at the defeated Penelope and prepared to end the trial, but the woman refused to back down yet. Desperate to salvage the night, she begged the host for more time to present her case against the defendant. Marcus asked if there was truly anything left to discuss, and Penelope insisted her questioning of Daniel wasn't finished. He reminded her they had been allies for 500 years, making her defense of Count Anthony completely baffling to him. She usually despised men of his sort, but with her back against the wall, Penelope had no other moves left. Seeing Barbara laughing at her only fueled her rage, yet she still couldn't grasp how they had become the villains. You and I can see the desperation here. She dropped to her knees, begging Marcus for one final chance at justice. Daniel hid a smirk as he watched her crumble, knowing every single event was playing out exactly as he predicted. With the perfect moment approaching, he caught Lady Lydia's eye in the back of the room, giving a subtle signal. Lydia understood and quietly slipped away while Penelope prepared to drop her final, most devastating bombshell on the noble court. She stood and informed the lords that there was still one terrifying truth she had yet to share with the kingdom. The room went cold as she brought up the Great Plague, the mysterious sickness currently ravaging every corner of the continent. She claimed the death toll was rising because the disease had been spread intentionally by a monster hiding among them. She pointed her finger and named Sir Daniel as the mastermind, while he realized it was finally time for his ace. He knew Penelope and Lord Ivan had planned this from the start, using the previous execution as just a mere appetizer. The elder Ivan stepped forward, sensing that the real battle for their lives was only just beginning in that room. Marcus demanded to see any shred of evidence that could prove such a horrific accusation. Ivan smiled. Penelope had regained her composure and was finally sticking to the plan that would destroy their young rival. She explained that this plague was slaughtering both man and beast alike, but there was finally a glimmer of hope. She spoke of the cure, the rare black herb, and then asked the court who had discovered its medicinal power first. She revealed that the man who found the cure was in this very room, and his name was Sir Daniel. But here was the catch. He had bought the entire kingdom's supply of the herb before the plague even began. Confusion swept through the crowd as Penelope explained that Daniel not only knew the plague was coming, but the cure too. He had predicted a disease that didn't exist yet, and she demanded to know how that was even humanly possible. There was only one logical answer. Daniel himself must have been the one to release the sickness upon the world. The whispers grew into a roar as the lords wondered if this hero was actually the world's greatest mass murderer. Penelope leaned in, her eyes sharp as she prepared to deliver the final strike that would end his life forever. Trust me, you and I are about to see if Daniel has a way out of this trap. All right, you and I are about to watch a desperate nobleman's, 𝑨𝒓𝒊𝒖𝒔, finally start to fully unravel. The consultant explained that she helped him acquire every forbidden herb, and she had the proof to expose his every move. The room went silent. Duke Marba's turned to Ivar, demanding the truth. Ivar just stood there, choosing his words very carefully. He claimed he was afraid to confirm anything without absolute certainty before such a prestigious council of high lords and ladies. However, if the Duke ordered it, he promised to provide all the necessary evidence to clear his own noble house's name. Marbas didn't hesitate. "Produce it now," he commanded. Ivar agreed, shooting a deadly glare at the young Lord Dantalion nearby. The boy was actually laughing, which only fueled Ivar's rage. He was ready to finish him until chaos suddenly erupted. A desperate shout cut through the tension. From the back of the hall, a frantic guard was pushing through the crowd. The room buzzed with confusion as the guard stumbled forward. Duke Marbas frowned, clearly annoyed by this sudden, loud intrusion. He reminded everyone this was a sacred summit night and demanded the soldier explain why he was disturbing the peace. Now pay attention, because this is where the young lord's master plan kicks into high gear. Ivar's estate was under attack. Ivar froze in terror. The guard described a massive explosion that rocked the manor, followed by thick smoke rising over the city. The fire was centered in the upper vaults, the exact place where Ivar kept his most gruesome and private collection of specimens. Panic-stricken, Ivar fell to his knees before the Duke, begging for permission to leave and save his precious assets immediately. Marbas told him to stand. He granted a mere 15 minutes of absence. This was a rare, one-time exception for him. Interrupting the high summit was forbidden, but the Duke was feeling merciful. Ivar bowed low, thanking him for the generous kindness. Gripping his cane tight, he pushed through the nobles. Baron Barbatos just watched him scramble and started laughing out loud. That mocking laughter annoyed Lady Paimon, but she soon noticed something else. Lord Dantalion was quietly slipping out of the room. She wasn't done with him yet. "Stay right there," she commanded. Her judgment hadn't even been fully passed on him yet. The young lord just shrugged, claiming he wanted fresh air. He assured her he wasn't fleeing and had nothing to hide. As the boy vanished outside, Ivar frantically searched for his steward, Thomas. He needed answers, and he needed them right now. He barked out questions about the attack, but Thomas was just as confused. He hadn't heard anything until the guard arrived. Knowing nothing, Ivar ordered him to mobilize every single guard and servant back to the estate to fight the growing flames. The steward rushed off to obey. "But what about you, my lord?" he asked. Ivar had a different plan in mind. "You and I saw this coming, right?" Ivar's enemies weren't just sitting around. He headed straight for the high observatory. Who would dare attack on summit night? His enemies clearly knew the manor was vulnerable while the guards were all away. The thought of his secret coffin collection burning made his blood run cold. But for an old man, the climb was brutal. Every step was a struggle. He vowed to move his entire collection the second this disastrous night finally came to an end. He swore blood-soaked revenge on whoever did this. Reaching the balcony, he saw it, black smoke choking the midnight sky. The fire was real, but then a voice drifted through the air. Someone was already there, waiting for him in the shadows. Ivar turned and froze. He found himself face to face with Lord Dantalion, who remarked that the view was quite spectacular. He mocked Ivar, saying he could surely see his own room burning. The old man wondered what this sudden appearance meant. Dantalion knew exactly where Ivar would run. The young lord had beaten him to the punch, and the trap was closing. Ivar demanded answers, but Dantalion just laughed. Now, let's look back 10 minutes before this whole mess even started. We see a flash of the three Weaver sisters perched high above the estate. They were hesitating, waiting for the final sign. "Are we really doing this?" they whispered. They were nervous, scanning the horizon for the signal they were promised to receive. Despite their doubts, they decided to trust Dantalion's plan. He had shared a very dark secret during their last private meeting. He didn't just ask them to burn the manor. He told them that this mission involved their own personal interests too. They were confused at first, but then he dropped a bombshell. Lady Beatrice, who had vanished, was likely already dead inside. The thought of their sister's body being toyed with by Ivar changed everything. If the boy was right, there would be blood. They would never forgive Ivar for such an insult. Still, they weren't entirely sure if the young lord was telling the truth. There was only one way to find out. As low-ranking maidens, they had nothing to lose by following a sovereign's command. They were bound by duty to the sovereign lord. Suddenly, a bright light flickered at the summit, cutting through the dark. High above the summit, Lady Lapis pointed her finger toward the sky. That was the signal they had been waiting for. So that's how the trap was set, and trust me, you and I are definitely going to want to see the fallout. Stick with me here. We're watching this old man scramble, trying to spot someone hiding in the shadows. He scanned the hall for Duke Valerius, but neither would be foolish enough to strike during the king's summit. Julian stepped closer, telling the old man to relax since they were alone for now. He simply informed the elder that he wanted a simple, honest conversation between two gentlemen. Alistair frowned, mentioning the sudden raid on his merchant house that morning. Julian grinned and confessed to the whole thing, sending the man into a rage. He explained it was the only way to get Alistair away from prying eyes. Destroying the house wasn't his final goal, but he needed a chance to talk away from those prying eyes. Pay attention here. This apology was actually Julian's first real move in their game. Alistair's face twisted as he realized he'd been treated like a total amateur. What could Julian want so badly that he would go this far? The elder vowed to crush him, no matter the cost. Alistair refused to play his game, saying they would only relay the information as they had been commanded by Lord Stirling. There was nothing left to discuss between them. It was just time for cold, hard orders. Julian sighed, regretting their first face-to-face meeting had to end so quickly. Alistair agreed with him, lamenting the chaos that had brought them together in this place. But when Julian questioned that response, the old man grew even more confused. Alistair had no clue what Julian was plotting, claiming he was just an old man who couldn't track a renegade's mind. Then came the offer. Julian asked Alistair to become his loyal subordinate. The elder was stunned. How could a low-born noble even suggest such a thing? He laughed it off as a joke, but Julian's expression stayed stone-cold serious. Julian was completely serious, asking one more time for the elder to set aside his pride and become his subordinate. You and I saw that coming. Alistair just burst out laughing at the sheer audacity. As they both laughed, a dark purple aura began to bleed from the elder. Julian smiled. Finally, after all that talk, the old man's true self appeared. Alistair was livid. The energy was suffocating, but Julian was ready for his next play. He was ready to proceed with the plan, calling Lady Clara from the shadows where she had been hiding all along. The sight of the traitor who sold out his house made Alistair even angrier. Julian joked about the reunion, but Alistair just screamed the woman's name. He reminded her of the house rules. Traitors pay for their crimes in blood. Lady Clara didn't flinch at all. She simply threw his own words back in his face. Use any means to reach your goals. That's exactly what Alistair had taught her. Julian promised a better future than the one she had serving a dying house. With that man by her side, she felt confident that she would witness that future happen and had zero regrets. Julian kept poking the old man, while Lady Clara stood firm without a hint of regret. Alistair spat that their future was a fantasy. They'd lose everything after this meeting. He threatened them both, saying they would lose everything after the meeting once he provided the evidence about the forbidden bloom. The elder wondered if the boy had finally lost his mind in this summit. Julian countered, saying he was actually the one worried about the old man. Then he pulled several strands of blonde hair from his pocket with a smirk. He asked Alistair if he recognized them. The elder's heart skipped a beat. Julian laughed, saying it wasn't this body Alistair should worry about, but something hidden far away in the frozen lands. Let's pause. The real Alistair is actually a small girl's body, frozen deep in a cave in the far north. Alistair dropped his staff, unable to believe Julian had found the truth about his hidden, original body. He trembled, staring at the boy. How did he find out about his true form? Julian just laughed. He knew because this entire world was a game he'd already finished. All right, let's dive into the dark past of Lord Ivor, a vampire who fell for the hero in the original game. He had been betrayed by the dark sovereign he served, sealing his body inside a glacial casket to avoid being used again. He survived by moving his consciousness between living dolls, and Duke Alaric was stunned when he first realized the truth. This Ivor was completely different from the heroine in the game, so Alaric continued his psychological game with a cold smile. He whispered that he was deeply concerned about such a lovely young lady having her life torn out by local monsters. He noted that it would only take one small signal for disaster to strike, leaving Ivor wide-eyed with pure terror. The vampire wondered how his identity was discovered, since he had never told a soul about his secret life as a doll. No one alive knew that truth except himself, yet there was Alaric, holding a strand of blonde hair identical to his. Ivor began to spiral into a total panic, unable to believe his carefully hidden existence was falling apart right now. Before the meeting, Alaric had swiped some hair from a noblewoman to bluff, but he never expected it to be this effective. Lady Lyra listened in confusion, but seeing her former boss's frantic reaction, she realized Alaric was actually speaking the truth. The Duke then asked the man once again if he would finally agree to serve him, knowing his secret was out. Ivor panicked, repeatedly questioning why this was happening to him, his face twisted in a look of total shock and despair. Now pay attention to Alaric's face here. It's pure evil as he waits for Ivor to finally break. Ivor yelled that he would never serve a mere boy, repeating how much he hated being trapped in this situation. Unable to believe he was cornered, a dark purple aura of intense power suddenly erupted at his feet. It began to envelop his body until the man was no longer visible, while he screamed out with desperate fervor. The purple mist shifted into a strange shape with several tails, lashing out violently toward Lady Lyra and the Duke. He snatched Lyra as a hostage, pressing sharp nails against her throat and warning that any move would mean her death. Alaric watched calmly, asking why he was doing this, but the elder snapped back, ordering the young Duke to shut up. He threatened that another step forward would cost Lyra her life, then tried to propose a desperate deal between them. The elder demanded that Alaric release his true body from the casket, promising that Lyra's life would be spared. He believed that by holding the woman Alaric loved, he had finally found the demon Duke's one and only weakness. Alaric had even committed murder for her sake, so Ivor was sure the Duke would have no choice but to accept. Ivor wanted to kill them both right then, but he couldn't risk his true body suffering any harm while vulnerable. He was also nearly out of magic after his last action, leaving him with no other option but to propose a deal. He vowed that once he regained his true power, he would definitely kill Alaric for what he had done today. Alaric responded coolly, saying he understood the deal, but then he told Ivor to go ahead and kill her. This caught Ivor completely by surprise as he stared at the boy's demonic, smiling expression, unable to comprehend the situation. I know what you're thinking. Is he actually going to let her die? Well, let's see how cold Alaric really is. Alaric told Ivor flat out that he didn't care about Lyra's life, taunting him to kill her right there. The elder rolled his eyes in agony, wondering if he had heard correctly, questioning if this was even a negotiation. Alaric explained that a negotiation only happens when both sides are equal, or when one side is clearly much stronger. Being the leader of the merchant guild, Alaric figured Ivor would be smart enough to understand a concept that simple. In a panic, Ivor screamed for him to shut up while threatening Lyra's life, but Alaric didn't blink. He just told him to go ahead and do it, then asked Lyra if she actually cared about dying right here. She simply replied that she would gladly sacrifice herself for her master, leaving Ivor with zero leverage in the end. The elder struggled to understand how these two could have such a chilling conversation while her life was on the line. Alaric stepped closer, explaining that the elder had misunderstood the entire situation regarding the plague from the very start. Ivor believed Duke Magnus was the mastermind behind the disease, and that Lyra was just the one carrying out orders. He thought Alaric was just a pawn in the scheme, but as the Duke moved closer, Ivor realized the truth. Alaric revealed that he was actually the one behind everything, and Ivor had been completely wrong about the power dynamic. As Alaric moved closer, the elder finally began to realize the terrifying truth behind this whole deadly game. Alaric revealed that he was the true mastermind, and Ivor had been dead wrong from the very beginning. And that's where we leave it. Trust me, you and I just saw a masterclass in total manipulation. Now, you and I are watching a broken man tremble in terror, wondering what kind of monster Julian really is. Alaric finally accepts the truth. He cannot defeat this boy. He finally sees the face of the true Dark Master. Duke Julian looks down at the defeated Baron and tells him there is no need for fear. He needs Alaric. The Baron can keep his title and his life, just as before. Julian only has one very specific favor to ask. Alaric must simply listen to a few favors now and then, with the supposed right to refuse always on the table. Julian snaps a lock of blonde hair, a silent threat that refusing his requests would lead to a very dark end. Then comes the first demand, a secret whispered directly into Alaric's ear so that only the two of them truly know. The Baron looks sickened by what he hears, but Julian coldly reminds him that they have a trial to finish. He also drops a bombshell. He wasn't the one who spread the plague, and tells Alaric that he will handle the rest. Back in the High Chamber, Archduke Sterling checks his pocket watch, realizing it is finally time to resume the trial. Alaric returns to the room in total silence under the watchful eyes of the court. Sterling asks for his final report. He wants to move forward with the midnight conclave. Baron Alaric simply replies that he has no more objections left. Lady Beatrice laughs in his face, seeing how broken he looks. She mocks him for losing his legendary fighting spirit. She wonders if the destruction of his manor also shattered his courage, but Sterling cuts her off before she finishes. Beatrice stays quiet, and now the entire court waits for the last person to return, the mysterious Duke Julian himself. He walks in a moment later, with Isolde by his side. Lady Alara's blood boils just by looking at him. Sterling resumes the meeting now that everyone is present. Alara claims she is glad the coward didn't try to flee. Julian calmly shoots back that he already told her he was only out getting a bit of fresh air. An impatient Alara demands that Alaric present the evidence, but the Baron stands there like a statue, completely unmoving. Frustrated, Alara tells him to hurry up, but then Alaric speaks. He actually has no evidence of any crime at all. Wait, you and I saw that coming, right? Everyone is stunned as Alaric declares there was never any evidence. He admits that every single word Lady Alara spoke was nothing more than a calculated and total lie. The room watches in shock while Alara explodes with pure rage, demanding the Baron repeat those treasonous words again. She cannot believe her ears, but as he begins to speak, she snaps and screams that he must want death. If he wants to die so badly, she will kill him herself. Archduke Sterling quickly steps in to stop her. He blocks her path, reminding the lady that this is the sacred night of the Midnight Conclave. No blood can fall. Reluctantly, Alara backs down and calls for Silas, her personal consultant from the Blackwood throne, to step forward. Silas had been watching from the shadows and steps out, catching the attention of every noble in the center hall. Julian spots the goblin and wonders who he is, but assumes a mere servant can't change the current situation. For Alara and Alaric, this feels like the end of the road. Silas looks at his master with deep concern. The servant senses that something is terribly wrong and worries about what truly happened to the master he serves. Alara shouts at Silas, reminding him that he was the one who claimed Julian definitely spread the deadly plague. Silas agrees with her words, but then he explains the truth. The entire story of Julian spreading sickness was fake. It was a lie he created himself. Alaric is absolutely floored by his loyal servant's confession, as is everyone else. Alara asks if this is just something Alaric ordered him to say, unable to grasp what is actually happening. But Silas insists he took no orders from anyone. He orchestrated this entire grand scheme all on his own. The woman is furious once more, stating that he could never have done something so bold and dangerous. They have known each other for years. She isn't asking this of an employee, but of a dear, long-time friend. She asks him one last time who was truly in charge of this. Without a second of hesitation, the goblin speaks. The goblin takes full responsibility for everything. He claims he acted alone to get his hands on Julian's power. He wanted the black herbs Julian possessed and decided to use the higher nobles to achieve his selfish goal. He targeted Lady Alara and Baron Alaric, admitting he simply took advantage of their goodness and their massive influence. Duke Julian is shocked that the goblin is taking the fall for everyone. It is a massive, unexpected sacrifice. Archduke Sterling asks Silas if he understands the gravity of using High Lords to satisfy his own petty desires. The goblin knows the price, and that's where we leave it. You and I just saw a truly legendary sacrifice. All right, stick with me here because everything just went south for our heroes, and there is no coming back now. Lady 𝒂𝒚 had placed her total trust in a fool who barely understood what had happened to his own master. He pulled a hidden blade, deciding to trust Ivar to settle the score once everything was over. It was his final gift to his friend, pointing the blade at his own heart to pay the ultimate price. He slit his own throat, leaving Lady 𝒂𝒚 frozen in horror as she watched her only friend fall dead. She screamed that this was never supposed to happen, while the nobles around her rushed to see if she was okay. Drained of all strength, she collapsed, forcing Lord Marbas to order his men to carry her to another room. Watching from the sidelines, Lady Barbatos began to laugh, claiming the wretched woman had finally gotten exactly what she deserved. She mockingly asked why 𝒂𝒚 was leaving her precious goblin behind instead of giving the corpse one last kick. Marbas silenced her outbursts while Dantalion approached the fallen goblin, realizing the true weight of the creature's final sacrifice. Now pay attention here. That goblin had played everyone just to turn Lady 𝒂𝒚 and Ivar into mere innocent victims. Ivar fought back tears of pure guilt, realizing this entire tragedy was actually his own fault. Dantalion placed a hand over his heart, showing a rare moment of genuine respect for the dead goblin's iron determination. Lord Marbas approached Dantalion, vowing that he would personally ensure Lady 𝒂𝒚 paid for the chaos she caused. But Dantalion interrupted the great host, coolly stating that there was absolutely no need for any further punishment. He explained that 𝒂𝒚 was merely manipulated, and with the goblin dead, no one was left to hold accountable. Lord Marbas was impressed by such grace, feeling his respect for the young demon lord grow significantly in that moment. His affinity with Dantalion jumped by 20 points, as he declared that the boy's legendary mercy would be remembered. With the dark business of the Walpurgis night concluded, there was no longer any reason to continue the formal judgment. A majority vote quickly brought the long meeting to an end, finally closing the chapter on this chaotic night. Marbas offered drinks to celebrate, and Barbatos was more than happy to start calling for the strongest alcohol available. She dragged Dantalion along to join her, insisting that they toast to the night's madness together as newfound allies. Dantalion knew he had won her over, but he quickly realized that the drunken Lady Barbatos was a massive nuisance. While the other nobles danced and cheered, Ivar stood alone, cradling the cold body of his fallen friend. He whispered a final apology to the goblin, swearing that one day he would repay the debt of this sacrifice. After surviving several rounds with Barbatos, Dantalion slipped away to the balcony to stare at the distant city lights. He wondered how she could drink so much without falling ill, questioning if all demon lords possessed such insane tolerances. Feeling a bit lightheaded himself, he paused to look back on every crazy thing that had happened since his reincarnation. You and I know how much has changed since he entered this world, and honestly, the ride is only beginning. Thinking of his useless past life and his pathetic father, he realized he was finally having the time of his life. Lapis found him there, and as their eyes met, Dantalion joked that she always seemed to know exactly where he was. She immediately scolded him for being reckless, demanding to know why on earth he had decided to forgive Lady 𝒂𝒚. She warned him that leaving such a dangerous enemy alive was a mistake that would surely come back to haunt him. Dantalion was taken aback by her sharp tongue, asking her to take it easy on him after such an exhausting day. But she just kept staring at him coldly, forcing him to explain the real logic behind his seemingly merciful decision. He insisted that Payman was no threat because his own schemes stretched far beyond what anyone else could ever imagine. He promised her a future vision unlike anything she had ever seen, assuring her that everything was going exactly to plan. She whispered that she understood, but then she caught him off guard by suddenly pulling him into a deep, surprising kiss. Flustered and completely caught off guard, he stammered, trying to ask what she was thinking with a move like that. She simply replied that she finally saw him for who he truly was, leaving Dantalion feeling confused and slightly exposed. Blushing, he tried to argue that he had only made her his fiancée to serve his own selfish, cold-hearted goals. He even confessed that he would let her die without hesitation if it meant his master plan would succeed in the end. To his shock, Lapis just smiled for the first time, telling him she already knew and still chose to believe. He pulled her into his arms, mesmerized by her rare smile before leaning in to kiss the girl once again. "You and I just witnessed a heavy night, and trust me, the shadows in this world only get darker. All right, you and I are about to see a twisted memory where a man threatens two beaten little girls." Young Julian stood by his father, watching the horror unfold. He begged the Duke to stop this madness and protect them. He pleaded for his mother, but the Duke refused, commanding his son never to speak ill of that heartless woman again. Julian refused. A killer was threatening two innocents simply because they were born from different noble bloodlines and rival houses. Losing control, he asked his father who he would choose, his own kin or that woman, with a chilling, twisted smile. The Duke said he loved her. He told his son he was far too gloomy and should try thinking more positively. Julian could not believe his ears. Shattered and inconsolable, he broke down, swearing he would never forgive his father's betrayal. Flash forward to a crowded city square. The world watches in shock as Lyra strikes Julian hard across the face. The witnesses gasped at such violence against a noble. Afterward, she coldly remarked that she hadn't expected him to be needy. Julian cursed Lyra, calling her a traitorous wretch. How dare a mere servant raise her common hand against her rightful lord? Standing before the crowd, Julian demanded to know if she truly understood the severe consequences of striking a high-ranking noble. She said she did. Watch this closely, their eyes say more than words ever could as the crowd circles. Right then, Julian dismissed Lyra from his service. 2 hours later, he is at his new manor in Northreach. He explains the separation to a guest, then asks why Lady Beatrix has suddenly shown up at his private estate today. She replies that the most famous couple in the Shadow Realm just split. Clearly, she is hunting for some gossip. Julian notes it has only been 2 hours, yet the rumors have already spread like wildfire through every tavern, court, and manor. He is in no mood for talk. Beatrix laughs, calling him cold for ignoring a lady who traveled so far to listen. She claims she came to hear from her junior. Julian hates being called that, but he stays silent as she keeps talking. She points out that striking an archduke is usually punishable by death. She wonders how a common girl survived the act. She asks Julian what he actually did in response. Julian tells her to stop meddling in his life and just leave. Beatrix insists he should not be so serious. She likes him and feels a duty to guide young lords. She tells him not to dwell on it. After all, the world is full of other noble women far better than her. She adds that everyone will soon forget his time with a commoner, calling him inexperienced in the ways of high society. "I know what you are thinking. 500 years of experience is a lot, and she claims to know love." She suggests that if Julian follows her lead, even the great houses will respect him without him lifting a single finger. Seeing his interest, Beatrix urges him to listen to his senior. Curious, she finally asks what truly happened between them both. Julian decides to explain. A month ago, a mysterious older woman arrived at the gates seeking an audience with the Lord. Beatrix gets curious. Julian explains that this woman claimed to be Lyra's long-lost mother from a faraway village. As far as he knew, Lyra was an orphan. He asked the woman why she had abandoned her child and fled so long ago. With tears in her eyes, She explained she was cast out from her village immediately after the girl was born. She confessed that not a single day had passed without her thinking of her daughter and searching the entire kingdom. Wiping her face, the woman spoke of the rumors she heard about Lyra, but Julian interrupted and took her to her. He led her to the girl. The woman thanked the merciful Lord, appearing truly honored by his kindness and grace. Suddenly, Lyra entered the room with an urgent letter for Julian. She stopped dead in her tracks upon seeing the visitor. Seizing the moment, Julian asked if she recognized the woman standing beside him. The air in the room turned to ice. Lyra stared in total silence. Julian mentioned that he was also surprised by her sudden appearance after all these years. Feeling awkward, the woman tried to speak her name, but Lyra just stared back with a terrifyingly cold and empty expression. She clenched her fists in hidden rage. Julian noticed the tension and asked again if this woman was truly her mother. He warned her that lying to a lord meant instant death. She needed to be absolutely certain this was her daughter. The woman panicked, swearing on her life she was indeed the girl's mother. Julian then asked why she waited until now. She claimed she always wanted to find her, but she had been fighting for survival every single day in the wilds. Julian asked if she had really been too busy to look for her own blood. She claimed there were many misunderstandings. She replied that her daughter was just a child back then, but she insisted that everything would be different from now on. She promised to speak properly with Lyra and move toward the future together instead of dwelling on the painful past. Trust me, you and I are about to see this lie fall apart in the most brutal way imaginable. All right, you and I are starting this story with a brutal punch right to the face. He screams that she had no right to settle the past alone, demanding to know if she even cared about 𝑨𝒓𝒐𝒏. He lands another hook, sneering that she only showed up now that her daughter finally became someone important. 𝑑antalion stomps on the old woman's head, crushing her into the dirt while she cries out in agony. He declares that 𝑨𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 is his woman, and he will never let anyone hurt her again, no matter who they are. 𝑨𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 begs the Lord to stop this madness, but he refuses to listen to her desperate pleas. He rants that he can see the resentment in the mother's eyes, claiming she only wants to leech off 𝑨𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔. She wanted to play mother now, but in truth, she was planning to leech off her daughter's life. The woman screams in terror as 𝑑antalion draws his sword, looking ready to end her right then and there. But watch this, 𝑨𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 steps between them, risking her own life to stop his blade from falling. He asks why she is protecting the person who ruined her life, but she tells him to stop. She says it is not necessary for him to dirty his hands over a piece of trash like this. 𝑑antalion orders her to hire mercenaries for the job, but 𝑨𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 has finally reached her breaking point. She snaps that he knows nothing about her, and her affinity for him drops instantly. Confused, he asks why she is angry when everything he did was meant to help her. Without a word, she turns her back and walks away to look after her mother. Later, 𝑑antalion tells 𝑏𝒆𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 the story, wondering where exactly things went wrong in the situation. I know what you're thinking. 𝑏𝒆𝒊𝒖𝒔 realizes she is dealing with a total psychopath here. He insists he was being reasonable, since the woman was the source of 𝑨𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔's misery. 𝑏𝒆𝒊𝒖𝒔 realizes her hopes of him being a promising newcomer have completely vanished. He asks if she is not supposed to be the one who solves matters of the heart. She tells him to listen, pointing out he tried to murder the girl's mother in her presence. He argues that if someone is trash who deserves to die, then someone should kill them. 𝑏𝒆𝒊𝒖𝒔 feels sorry for the half-blood, saying she would have neutered him on the spot. He asks whose side she is on, but she ignores him, asking what happened next. She clarifies that since this all happened a month ago, she wants to know the aftermath. 𝑑antalion's gaze wanders to her legs, and she tells him that view isn't free. Changing the subject, he says he is too drained to keep chatting without a good reason. Having just ended his relationship a few hours ago, he isn't in the mood to chat. 𝑏𝒆𝒊𝒖𝒔 tells him to keep looking if it keeps him talking, wanting the rest of the tale. He reveals that before the fight, 𝑨𝒓𝒏𝒊𝒖𝒔 handed him a mysterious letter. He passes it to her, showing the warning that 2,000 soldiers will attack soon. 𝑏𝒆𝒊𝒖𝒔 is hooked, wanting to know much more about this strange and threatening letter. She does not see the difference, so he tells her to look closer at the text. There are only 2 sentences, but they contain several hidden clues. 𝒊𝒏𝒊𝒍𝒕 pours herself more wine, intrigued by his analysis of the situation. He says "you are a target" could actually mean "I am not your enemy." The wording is too polite for a threat, hinting at a hidden motive. He began trying to understand who had sent the letter and what their true intentions were. 𝒊𝒏𝒊𝒍𝒕 finds his interpretation fascinating and asks him to provide much more details on it. He explained that the writer was likely a noble from a high social class with a top-tier education. The slant of the writing suggests the person is left-handed or ambidextrous, which clearly impressed 𝒊𝒏𝒊𝒍𝒕. Dolly Ann remarked that handwriting is a reflection of a person's life and who they truly are. Trust me, you and I are about to see just how deep this mystery goes with this deduction. Since handwriting reflects one's soul, he finally deduced exactly who sent that letter. Trust me, it is wild. All right, you and I are about to see Lady Beatrice take the letter and demand to examine the evidence again. She scanned the parchment, completely baffled by how Julian had managed to pull so much information from just one look. Julian just smirked, asking if she was blind before pointing out a tiny comma written between the first 2 digits of the number. Most people wouldn't bother with such detail, but this specific writer had a very distinct habit of marking their zeros. This told him the culprit was someone who dealt with massive amounts of gold or worked with complex financial ledgers daily. We are likely looking at a senior accountant or perhaps even a chamberlain serving within one of the great noble houses. In that moment, Beatrice realized that Lord Julian was far more dangerous and clever than he looked. Julian chuckled, saying it was too early for praise since 5 more secrets were still hidden within those lines. Pay attention here. He refused to reveal everything at once because it wouldn't be fun to spoil the mystery. Beatrice snapped at him to stop teasing her, calling him a devious rogue before suggesting the writer was a merchant. Julian agreed that it seemed likely, so Beatrice decided to lend her hand in uncovering the identity of this mystery writer. She promised to track down the culprit herself, leaving Julian wondering if such a feat was even possible for her. With a dark aura swirling around her, Beatrice bit her finger, preparing to cast a powerful spell of blood magic. She touched the blood to the paper, invoking a curse called the sinner's regret to command the letter's return. Blue flames suddenly consumed the parchment, and from the falling ashes, a small, squeaking bat began to take shape. She snatched the creature midair, explaining that this familiar would fly straight to the one who penned those treacherous words. You and I both saw that coming, right? Now the creature will fly across the kingdom to find the traitor. She opened the window and released the beast, telling Julian that he now owed her a very significant favor. Julian acknowledged her incredible power, but he couldn't help but ask how long this tracking process would actually take. He played along, saying that the great Lady Beatrice would surely hunt down the culprit in no time at all. This annoyed her slightly, as she explained that the spell would only work instantly if the writer was nearby right now. She told him to be thankful and challenged him, claiming her magic was absolute power compared to his mere deductions. They were about to see whose skills were superior, while Beatrice brought the conversation back to that mysterious merchant. Julian already had a feeling about this, suspecting the merchant was someone he was already very well acquainted with. If his theories were right, the man behind this was a traitor he had dealt with many times before. Julian claimed they could catch the villain even faster, making Beatrice question how he planned to do it. He suspected a merchant in his inner circle, and soon they arrived at the Merchant Guild headquarters in Ironcrest. Lord Alastair stood there, swearing he never wrote a letter, while Julian pretended he really wanted to believe him. But the facts were clear. Alastair had a long history of plotting against him, leaving the man trembling in fear. The terrified merchant insisted that he had absolutely no intention of ever challenging a man as powerful as Julian. Julian told him that while he respected the man's talents, he still couldn't trust him as a human being. Alastair desperately asked how he could earn that trust, and Julian replied that a few favors would do the trick. The noble asked what kind of favors, and Julian revealed he needed to hire the most elite mercenaries in the land. He gave a final, cold order, Alistair was to gather 3,000 elite soldiers within the next 2 days. And that's where we leave it. You and I just witnessed one hell of a cliffhanger.